Well, yo, my name is Albert, and today we're doing a tier list here for the MoW2 regiments. Since I am not extremely good at this game, though I am learning quite a bit, and I've played a shit ton in the past, like, 2 weeks since the game released, I did invite a guest here, so I have iwontheinternet with me. Hello.
Yeah, hello. Pretty much I've been an alpha tester for this game. I've played Arena before, it was similar system, so I guess my meta knowledge is decently on point.
Yeah, of course. You're also currently, if we go to the rating, the leaderboards here, we can see that you're actually a top 10 player. I've seen you've actually been even higher than that, but currently you're 9, I believe. We just checked
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
the thing about leaderboard is that it's just a grind.
Yeah,
Like,
of
you
course.
just see people having 150 battles. So,
Of course, but it does also show how much like experience you have, I
yeah,
think.
pretty much.
All right, so I hope that you're going to be like my, we're going to be. I'll basically say my point of view first, and then you will say yours, and then we'll like try to split it in the between. Or if you can like convince me that something is really good or something is really bad, then we'll of course try to, we'll probably change my opinion.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. I also would like to we have these 5 tiers, right? So we should try to split them up as much as possible, even though there's like very tiny difference perhaps. We should probably not just slam everything in S tier, even though there are a lot of really good regiments.
Yeah, I think we should add S plus for at least couple of.
Oh, you think so? You don't think A
Yeah,
and S is good enough to like
nope.
show?
There is few things that is so incredibly broken, and
Oh,
I
okay,
guess
okay.
you'll get to know it.
Okay, let me see here if I can add an S plus. Okay, I fixed it. So we have now S plus and S and A. All right, so well let's just get started. We're going to do the artillery lines first. So we got the first artillery regiment, which is like the basic bit of everything artillery. It's got some SPGs for the modifiers. You've got like a tiny bit of everything. It's not really like specialized. I would say this is a decent all-rounder. I think that's true for like most of the like first regiments, but it doesn't really like excel in everything or anything rather. You got some AA, you got some SPGs, and you got some arty. So I would like put this in the middle. I would say B or potentially A tier. That would be
Yeah, I'd say
my.
I would agree on B. Because, like, with all of those first regiments, it's like you have a little bit of a disadvantage early on, but you have decent slot count, and later on you can bring the heaviest things that there are, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's like it's not specialized, so perhaps this is like better if you're solo queuing than if you're like playing in a team where you probably want to be a bit more specialized. So yeah, let's just go it for a baseline. Yeah, B.
Yeah, actually, yeah, I think it's B.
All right, moving on. We got the self-propelled regiment, and we got the Soviet one first, of course, which has those massive modifiers for self-propelled. You get something like 20% off on the rating to add them into your regiment, which is quite a bit. I actually think this one is really good. I don't think it's potentially better than the German one, but from what I've seen, the fact that you got the planes, you got the anti-air, and you got those artillery, I just think this is probably some of the better artillery regiments in my mind. So I would rate this probably A or potentially S.
Yeah, the main thing here is you can put like the top tier Russian tank destroyer in Echelon 2. It's like the SU-100. Then you can still provide anti-air for your team, and you have some backup, or you can just play SU-122 in different slots. And you have like this kind of all-around setup to deal with everything. And you can, it's pretty hard to counter you. That's how we can talk about that, because with man-held ATs and guns, it's just one shot and you're down. And with those, you're pretty survivable. You can play around, and I think the Russian one is actually pretty strong, because you can later on you can play like a double ISU meme and just drive around. I think it's like for a solo queue, just because you can put a bit of infantry with those heavy stuff. I think we would put it at S tier.
Oh, S even. Okay.
Yeah, it's like one of the strongest artillery regiments you can play, I believe. Plus, opening is like really strong because you've got double Su-76 you can play with.
I'm really glad you actually agree with me there. That's nice. All right, moving on to the howitzer one. So the Soviet howitzer, of course, compared to having SPGs, it has a cost reduction for howitzers specifically, which is like Soviet has some of the best howitzers in my opinion. You got the B4. I realize I'm now kind of blocking the options here a bit, but there you go. So you have like the B4 here in Echelon 2, which I think is quite nuts. Especially if you like can keep it cloaked, and you also have some anti-air, you have some like perhaps some spotters, and in the late game you have the ISU, right? So again, I would say this is S tier in my mind, because the B4 is probably the best tank destroyer in the game. So yeah, that's what I would put it.
You know, the main thing is that you can put out those howitzers, you can provide AA for your team, but you have like, just because you don't have a lot of mobile stuff, you have zero potential of pushing anything. Like, you just sit back and you hope that you kill stuff, and it's all kind of RNG based.
You're very reliant on the rest of your team having
Yeah,
front line.
like you're gonna do the damage anyway, but are you going to win? That's another question. And I think here you kind of lack the ability to push mid game, early game, late game. It doesn't really matter.
That's
and
also true.
I think you are super reliant on your RT pieces, and then the main problem is you either take AA or AT or spotters. Like, you can't have all. Like, you can try to kill tanks with your artillery, but it's not like super efficient, and you're lacking AT in Echelon 1, 2, and 3 even. That's also a point. So the thing is that it's like super easy to play.
It's point and click so boring. Very much, yes.
Yeah, yes. So boring. And here, for me, the fact that you can take the better howitzers earlier, it's strong. But is it? Can you carry with this? That's the question, and I think not. I think it's a B tier deck maximum.
So, what slot would you put this as? I'm assuming you wouldn't put it on S then. You would probably put it way lower.
Probably B.
B? Do you want to split in the middle and put it on A?
I mean, we can, because it's like really easy to pick up. That's the main point. You just set up the artillery and AA, and you just provide some cover for your team.
Yeah.
I guess we can do A, because it's just brainless thing to play.
I would say, I mean, from what I've seen, I think this is just very annoying to see it facing, especially if you're in a tank regiment, because that B4, the B4s just kill tanks so easily. Like, even if you have like something like a super heavy tortoise, Jag Tiger, or King Tiger or something, like the B4s just takes it out. Same with like if you have an IS-3, like, you're not really scared of you getting penned, you're scared of the heavy HE howitzers. Like, that's the scariest thing. So,
yeah, generally, the heavier the unit, the more costly the unit, the better howitzers are versing it. So that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, and I also feel like the B4 specifically has like the best accuracy out of all like the heavy artillery pieces, like the USF M1 and like the German one. Like, they don't have that same accuracy as the B4. But moving on, let's go to the Air Defense Regiment. And well, this is another really good one in my mind. Because it has that super strong early presence with the double C SU 37, which I know we've talked about it before. It's probably the best Echelon 1 anti-air. But then in late game you also have all sorts of things. You can add planes into this. You can add the big 52k, which is like 88 equivalents, both for anti-air and anti-tank, and then you got like things like artillery and stuff. So I personally think this one is extremely good. Now, how I would rate it, I'm not sure. Is it good enough to warrant a S+ slot? I'm not sure, but S most likely.
You know, it's really strong Echelon 1. You can take like everything you really need. But then you're kind of missing on the strong Soviet stuff, like SU-100s, you know. You just don't have that, because in Echelon 3 you can't really take them, because if you take them, you can't take infantry in. It's like the same slot as infantry. So it's kind of blocking, you know, you're right here. The SU-100 is blocked by infantry, and you have to take infantry. Yeah. So you're lacking stuff, I'd say. It's really good at the job, but okay, when you're gonna meet the opponents that gonna really spam air, you're gonna have a great time. You're just gonna sit AFK in base and do the top damage, do the top score.
It's definitely a hard counter to the airborne regiments.
Yeah, it is. But then you're kinda, I think you're missing the top tier stuff, and that's really hurting you, because how do you deal with this deck when enemy has like something super heavy? Like there's just no way, apart from maybe taking a cut in or trying to counter it with BS3, but then you're really limited by the slots you can take. It's good regiment. You can really make it work, but I don't think it's S tier just because of the limitation that you can't take the heavy stuff.
Oh,
And the
well,
Soviet heavy stuff is really powerful.
I'm convinced. Would you rate this differently if you don't consider solo queue and you think like in a team?
In a team, like literally today we've played like some kind of semi-competitive rounds. We tried to, at least. And the main thing is you see some planes, but again you're missing on the heavy stuff, and that really hurts you. Even though your start is kind of strong and you can still mine some stuff, then later on support with infantry, with your Katyusha and stuff like that. But it's kind of painful just because of not having those top tier Soviet stuff.
All right. Well, you've certainly convinced me. What slot would you rate this as then? If not, you would
I
bring
think
it
for
down.
solo queue it's again B.
B.
Because it's gonna be, yeah. If someone would spam, if you're sure that someone's gonna spam A at you, it's S tier, like air at you. Then it's gonna be S tier. But if not, if you're gonna meet super heavies and you can't count on your team support, you have to kind of carry it yourself. It's lacking. It's just lacking.
All right. Well, B it is. And then we finally have the anti-tank regiment for the Soviet artillery line, which comes with those anti-tank modifiers. So I have a feeling you're probably gonna rate this quite good. Personally, I'm not sure. I actually think this is arguably the worst of the anti-tank regiments, but we'll get to those later, of course. I just feel like in Echelon 1 you got the Su-76, for instance. I just feel like that's a worse version of the like Marder, for instance, or the T-48. Same for like in Echelon 2, like the other just has very strong options. Meanwhile, I don't think this is as competing, but I have granted not played with this a ton. So
The
I
main
would
thing
say this
here,
is, yeah.
the main thing, maybe before you're gonna give your opinion, I'm gonna convince you.
Okay.
It's the same thing as the mobile RT. Like you have pretty much the same kind of game plan, because you got your high tier stuff like Su-100, Z-30. The other regiment can also take it, or the double Su-76 start. But then the mobile RT regiment can take like Su-152s, Su-122s, and this one is lacking that. And again, you kind of lack the stuff to deal with infantry, especially early on. Like you don't have the high HE calibers to deal with infantry. It's good. The regiment overall is good because you got the top tiers of its stuff, but the lack of ability to deal with infantry like Echelon 1 and 2, it's kind of painful.
Okay. So when I think of this, especially some of these like more generic regiments that have equivalents in the other factions, I feel like it's very easy to compare those. And I feel like this one is just straight up worse than the American and the German. Would you agree with that? Because then I think this just makes it not good, but pretty bad regiment. Because when you compare those, I feel like this one is just lacking. So why would you ever run this if you just have a better anti-tank regiment in another as another option?
It's kind of debatable because Su-100 is probably overall the best tier 5 mobile TD there is, just because you get 100mm gun on it, the BS3 pretty much. And what happens is your alpha is so big, you can one-shot the tanks up close that 88, for example, or 90mm cannot. The damage you do is just huge. And how you play with those tank destroyers is you do one shot and then you relocate to not get spotted after firing second shot anyway. So the damage of the shell is much higher. Plus you've got some armor comparable to for example, Jacksons from the US or some German stuff. And I think SU-100 is, as the job suggests, the tank destroyer, it's like really good.
All right, so I'm gonna say I would put this on a C. Where would you put this?
I think I wouldn't put it that bad. I think it's like power level in the solo queue. It's gonna be comparable to like first RT and 30th Air Defense Regiment.
So it's a B for you. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't think it's a C tier.
I can accept a B tier. I just don't think it's that good, you know, and I think some of the other ones, they're gonna be way higher, because I think they're just simply better. But alright, that was the entire Soviet artillery line. So we're not gonna continue with Soviets, we're gonna move on to the German artillery line instead. And we got the 1st Artillery Regiment first, and I think this is actually one of... It's not the best one, I wouldn't say, because that's coming up next. But I would rate this quite highly, simply because you got the airstrikes, and then late you got the Brumbar, and I think the Brumbar is just such a massive presence in this game. I would probably say it's the best SPG. So with that alone, and considering you also got anti-air, I would say this is quite nice, but then again I do think it's worse than some of the other options. So I would probably put this on a B tier myself. Would you agree with that?
Yep, I think it's the same story like with all of those first regiments. It's just you don't really have an access early on to anything good, but then you're kind of bringing a lot onto the table. The problem is like German 20mm, they're so trash against air. Like they're literally worse than Max on those quadruple 50 cals.
You mean the small flak guns? Are those the ones?
Yeah, the small flag guns, they're kind of useless.
Yeah, I've noticed the quad seems to be the better one when it comes to these earlier, like the Maxen and the M, is it called M19 or something?
The half track one.
Yeah.
And they're cost less, and you can take like 3 of them and just
spam them at the start. Even the Soviet one, the Yak or whatever, is not that good comparably. So yeah, all right, let's move on and just put it on B tier. Keep our pace up, we're doing well. So next up we have the German self-propelled one. And I played this so much, and I faced it so much yesterday, that I'm inclined to believe this is probably the best artillery regiment in the game.
Yep.
It's actually pretty nuts, because it really just covers basically everything you could ever need, I think. You have a very solid anti-air if you bring a couple AT-nades. You have the Brumbar, of course, already in Echelon 2, which is quite nuts, considering it's arguably the best SPG. You have some solid tank destroyers with like Martyr 3 and Echelon 1, which is nuts on its own. Like, it's gonna stop those medium regiments, it's gonna stop those T-35s, whatever you face. And you also get planes on top of this, as well as some decent infantry. So yeah, I would say this is an S+ regiment.
Yep, an Echelon 1, actually you can take, there is a 76mm half track with infantry gun. It is like free, it costs almost nothing.
You mean the Stummel, the 251-9?
Yep, this one. It is you can actually do the triple start and still take, you do the triple start with those, and on top of that you can still call in the Pak 38 to deal with tanks, and you literally use them just like it's suicide vehicles to trade with anything, and it's so hilarious.
Yeah, so it's diverse as well. Okay, well, yeah, clear S tier, S+ tier.
It's
regiment.
Probably the best one. Like you can pretty much play it however you want. You can provide everything for your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's so diverse. You have like massive tank destroyers as well, and I mean the Stug is good on its own, not only as a tank destroyer but also like a supporting pushing vehicle. So yeah, all right. Yeah, clear S+ tier, our first S+. And then we got the German howitzer, which is of course more howitzers. I would say this one is slightly bit worse than the Soviet one, and we put the Soviet one on an A tier, so might be another B tier, at least for me. That's my impression.
Yep, probably just because
'Cause
the
it's
howitzers are slightly worse.
yeah,
I
and
believe so.
it's gonna have the same issue like the Soviet one, right? That you mentioned, right? You can't like solo push, for instance, and you struggle versus some of those heavy stuff.
Yep, that's the same thing.
All right.
I just believe that the like the before is much more accurate than the Morzer.
Oh, that's actually true. Yeah, so it's even worse in that compartment. Would you say maybe this even goes down then? Maybe it's not even a B tier.
It
Would you
is
say
because
this is
it's
a
kinda it
C
still
tier then?
has it has 105 early on. Then you have the 150 millimeters also
Would you
with
say
the
the
Morzers.
105 is better than the Soviet, what's it called, M30?
Here it's kinda I would say it's balanced because the 122 gets a bit worse accuracy and a longer reload time, while this is more accurate but has a lower caliber gun.
Oh, okay.
I'd say it's gonna be a B tier because it's just again the deck that someone's gonna AFK in and it's gonna ruin your day because the of the auto shoot and no ability for you to like you can't really deal with certain decks pressing
Oh, okay.
howitzers.
It's one of those regiments you don't want to see randoms on your team be equipped with.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, no, actually, no. I would much rather see that the guy placing howitzers in the back than play infantry and plays mortars. All right,
Okay,
that's
okay, yeah. Fair enough. All right. We got the air regiment coming up next for the Germans, which is filled with flags of different kinds. I've not played with this a lot, but I would say that when I have seen anti-air, it's usually this one. I don't know if that's like Veraboo, but I think every time I see anti-air regiments, it's almost always this one and not the American or the Soviet one. Even though the Soviet one is really good, in my opinion.
I don't know. I think this deck really lacks because you don't get any medium AA early on, which means that you
True.
can't defend your team with the 20 millimeters.
Yeah, you only have the flak
Then
panzers.
later on, you're not getting anything crazy. You're just stuck with your flags, and like, all right, you have Wilburlines that you can like push around, treat it as a Panzer IV stuff. You can meme with it, but overall, I don't think it's a great deck because again, you don't have the heavy German stuff that you really need later on to deal with things. And I'd say that it's kind of the deal breaker, especially not getting anything good Echelon 2 means you're kind of on the back on the backhand all the time. You can spam
Yeah,
with Berlins, but it's not that great.
it feels extremely
And the
reliant
slots
on
are like really
on teammates
unique.
bringing like an actual front line. This like is very supportive.
Yep, it's like the definition of providing anti-air and then just miming with Wilburlins. Like you can't do anything else.
All
And I'd
right,
say it's gonna be lower tier.
should we? All right, yeah, I actually agree with that. Do you agree with a C tier rating for this,
Yep, probably. It
or
would be a C.
would you say this is even a D tier? Like a lot of regiments are really good, so when we actually can identify a bad one, maybe we should just put it on D
But you
tier.
still get you still get there is still flexibility, some flexibility to play with, and I think that you can make it work. It's just the fact that it's not on B tier. It's only because the early game is so trash. It's just
Okay.
the early game comparable to the Russian one is just trash.
All
Because
right.
then
Well,
you still have things to play around, but maybe not that great things, but still decent enough.
all right. Sounds good. Let's call it a C tier. And next up, we have the tank destroyer regiment for the Germans, which got a few fun vehicles, I would say. I think the main issue I have with this regiment is that while it's nice to, like in Echelon 1, having that Marder 3 is amazing. It's like the best early tank destroyer. The fact that the SPG regiment gets it just means this is completely overshadowed by the SPG regiment in my
Yeah,
mind.
the same story. The SPG regiment is just better.
Yeah, it's just a straight up better version of it. So, in my mind, that makes this a lot worse. And, I wouldn't even ever consider running this because the SPG exists, because it just does the same role but better while doing simultaneously more things.
Yeah, why would you even run pack 43s when you can run Nashrons on the SPG regiment and just move them around?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you got like, yeah, you have pack 43 in this, which I've not played with it that much, but I played a lot with the BS3, and I've sort of gotten a respect for them because they have insane camo rating, which I actually didn't know before. Which means you can like stay hidden for a long time, but at the same time, like the SPG one, you, as you mentioned, you have a lot of really good AT options there as well. So yeah, all right, I'm gonna say it. This is a D tier regiment because of the SPG one.
Maybe not that much, but I'd say if you're running AT regiment just for the AT, you would run this because the pack 43 has the highest pen amongst all of those AT guns.
Okay, yeah.
So I think it's still a B tier. It's like you still have stuff to do, but you're kinda lacking.
Oh, you think it's a B actually? Oh.
It's like in the middle of the pack. Yeah, I would not put it lower than the Soviet one. It's similar power level, I'd say.
I just feel like, you know, if you're running Soviet, you at least have this Soviet equipment, but I feel like this one is competing so much with the SPG one that I would say this makes it worse.
But then I mean, you know, the things you have are still great because you can play Echelon 2 Nations and they're really good. Like, or you can just take Yak Panzers and cosplay as a tank, just on the front line.
You can use those units in the SPG one as well. That's the issue I'm having.
Yep, and then that's why SPG is on S plus and this is gonna be on B because you still have things that you can do with those. But they're powerful. Those vehicles are still powerful. You're lacking some stuff, but it's that stuff is making the other deck S plus. It's not breaking the gameplay for this deck, I would say.
All right, fine. You got me convinced. All right, so I think that's the final one for the Germans, right?
Yep.
All right. USA coming up. First artillery. Should we even rate this or just put it on B tier? Yeah, I mean, it's similar to the other ones, right? It's very similar. It's got a bit of everything, while not really being heavily specialized. One thing I will say, the 105 Sherman is really strong. It's not as good as the Brum, but I wouldn't say it's that far off. And the fact that you can get so many because they're cheaper, so you can sort of still have like a decent army comp around it. I would actually say this is a really good vehicle.
Actually, you can't, because Echelon 2 you get 20 points and you can just play one, because it costs 11. It's not that 11? Abusive. Yeah. You can, for example, play double SU-122, but you can't play double Sherman 105.
How much is the Brum in comparison?
I think it's also 11.
Wait, it's only 9?
Oh, it's 9. Okay.
Okay, I thought it was the opposite. Wow, I was straight up wrong on that. I thought this 105 was cheaper. Okay, wow, that makes it a lot worse.
And you can look through the just look through the early stuff, and do you see anything apart from tier 1 AT and some planes?
True.
This? Like, there's nothing to take in this regiment in Echelon 1. You have no AT. You have 37mm AT that you
infantry.
can't.
I guess you have the Maxim, but yeah.
Like, why would you even play this for Maxim? It's like, this deck is completely empty, Echelon 1. It's just, you have no ability to play the game.
Yeah, that's true. I haven't even checked. I mean, it's been a long time since I ran this.
Yeah, and then later on, you need to kind of also make some choices, but the Hellcats are kind of carrying you. It's kind of the same story. Later on, you just get the cool stuff. But I'd say this makes it...
do you get the heavy M1 in this? You do. And you get the tortoise. I mean, you have some options, but it doesn't feel better than, like... Because some of the later options, you just get way higher, like, cost reductions on these units. So you can, like, add more stuff. Like this one, yep. Your reductions aren't that good.
Second thing, Echelon 2, you have no AA. Like, you have no heavy AA, meaning you can't provide anti-air for your team. You have just the...
Oh, yeah, you can't even bring out the M2 or something. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we found another D tier.
Okay, yeah, very true. I agree with you.
It's just the fact that there's so much more German and Russian stuff kind of makes this...
Wait, would you say D tier? Would you say it that low?
I mean C tier, sorry.
C, okay.
Yeah. It's just because you miss a lot of stuff and you.
I mean,
you
when
have
you
nothing
point
to play
these
with.
things out, it makes it sound so terrible. So I would maybe even put it on D.
I mean, you still have, for example, Hellcats to play around. They're pretty
Yeah,
expensive.
but
They
you can
die
do that
fast.
in the other regiments as well. So why would you pick this?
I mean, true. I think you should. I think it's actually you can put it in D tier because it has no early play. It has no ability to provide AA cover until Echelon 3.
Yeah, and I feel like AA is like that's one of the main things that the artillery line is supposed to provide, and if you can't provide that, like it's terrible.
Yep. Like, why would you even? Early on, Echelon 1 is just it's just like you playing infantry. You have planes, some early AA, and like M3 guns. Literally, infantry player, but with no infantry, of course.
All right, next up we have self-propelled for the USF, which of course comes with even more 105 Shermans or Hellcats, or I've put in some M12s here. I'm not too convinced. I'm not sure if I like them. I think the German equivalents are a lot better, like the Bison, for instance. I actually think have the M12 like been massively nerfed because it felt so much better during the playtest.
All RT got pretty heavily
Yeah,
nerfed.
but I feel like this one is just it stands out a bit because it can't seem to ever hit the target.
True.
Maybe it's just me, but it does have the M8s in Echelon 1, which I actually think are really good. You actually also have the option for the T48 here. I guess that's similar to like the German self-propelled where you got the Marder as an option. And you get the quads. This is actually pretty good. In late game, you can even have some of the heavy stuff like the Tortoise.
Yeah, pretty much. The main thing is you can play Slugger in Echelon 2, the 90mm one with a turret.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
like the
Jackson.
strongest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of the strongest things you can have.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have the AFK RT in Sherman's 105. You just AFK with those.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is you can play Sherman 105 and the Slugger at the same time. Then you're not gonna have infantry, but you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, 9
That's
and
pretty
11. You
too.
can fit both at the same time. Yeah, you're not gonna have any infantry as you mentioned, but if you play like a supportive role with a teammate, that sounds really good. Even though you're not fielding any AA, I guess.
Yeah, but then another thing is just the AA. I mean, early on you have the quads, but then in Echelon 2 when the real plane spam begins, you're kinda lacking stuff.
Yeah, you don't get the
Later
M2
on you have
here.
M1s.
You mean the M2?
I'd say it's strong thing. Like overall, this regiment is strong, but it lacks a few things compared to the other SPGs.
Yeah, it's not an S plus. All right, so I'm gonna give a shout here. I'm gonna say this is A tier. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Just because it lacks in some areas, but it makes up in the others pretty heavily. Yeah, especially the Slugger is really good tank destroyer.
Yeah, and the fact you can have that together with a 105 sounds really strong in Echelon 2, especially if you're playing like a 2-man and you're queuing 2-man and you have an infantry regiment with you. That sounds like a lot of anti-everything with like a screen in front of it.
Yep.
All right, A tier. Then we got the Howitzer regiment, Howitzer, for the Americans, which of course comes with those fat M1 howitzers in the later echelons. And early you have these huge like pack Howie guns. I'm not too convinced about them personally. You do have the quads here as well.
The thing about this deck is you have your transport is those M1 HSTs or whatever, and they come with a 50 cal on top. And what happens
true. The
is
cars comes. Yeah, the car comes with the.
Yeah.
True.
It has a 50 cal on top, and it can defend you from like saboteurs and stuff. Like the saboteur is gonna trade 1-for-1 whenever there is this half track close by.
Yeah, usually a suicide them, but maybe it's better to keep them close to the RT.
Yeah, it depends because you also kind of want to relocate from time to time. Then you also, I mean, the M19s can provide some kind of AA cover.
Yeah, but it's not as good as a big AA gun like a flak or the 52K or the M2, and you can't have that in Echelon 2 in this. You disappeared.
Okay, I think I'm back.
Oh, you're back, yeah.
What I was
Yeah.
telling you, you're still missing Echelon 2 AA, but you can
Yeah.
kind of provide it with M19s in this deck because you're just sitting in the back anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be as powerful as the Soviet one, just because of the half tracks. They're making the difference. You get the 350 cal to meme around,
True.
and you
All
can
right.
still play some AT roll later on.
I totally agree. Let's just go with A tier for it. It's a solid baseline and it's better than some of the basic options. B stands for basic, of course. All right, American Anti-Air Regiment, which, if I recall correctly, should have... Yes, it has that Echelon 2 M2 gun, which is very nice. Also has a lot of plane strikes.
Yeah, this A regiment, just because the Mustang airstrike is just so good, the tier 3 one. I think it's gonna be decently high because you get the really good AAPs Echelon 2.
Yeah.
Up on top of that, you can take some AT in certain slots.
Can you?
Later on, you don't
oh, yeah.
Later on, you don't need the tier 6 stuff because the only tier 6 stuff US have is the Tortoise. It's like the T95 whatever. You still can play with Hellcats and other stuff.
It removes the infantry slot though. That's the competition there. But if you're running in a team, you can of course sub it in if your teammates has a lot of infantry. You also got like the 1 of 5 Sherman and stuff here, but I think you'd probably much always pick the airplanes is pretty much always going to be best in slot currently, so it's a bit of a tough decision to get rid of planes for a 1 of 5 Sherman, I think.
Yeah, true. And there's, I mean, the M1 gun is actually like a really good AT gun. It's even better than the flak 88. So
the M1, there's a lot of M1. Do you mean the small
I mean M2,
anti-tank
sorry,
gun?
the M2, the M2
Oh, yeah, okay.
90mm AAPs. Sorry,
Yeah.
my bad.
No,
It's
the
really good
American
personally,
naming
yeah.
convention is not your fault.
Yeah, like, what is M2, bro? There's like 3 things called M2.
Yeah, 5 things called M1, you know, it's a bit ridiculous, but yeah. Alright.
So I'd say it's higher up, somewhere higher up, just because the M2 gun is really good.
Does it make itself into S tier, would you say?
Nope, not that high. But I'd say it's the best anti-air regiment, just because you're not missing out on the stuff later on, because you don't have it. You're stuck at the level 5 of units.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, an A tier sounds straight in the middle for me. So let's just put it there and move on to the anti-tank regiment. Which of course comes with the early Jacksons, as well as I think you have the tortoise as an option as well. I just love the tortoise. It's so much fun to use. I don't know if it's actually good. Perhaps you could provide some intel on that, whether or not it's useful in the higher tiers, but it's just so much fun to use, and you sort of feel invincible until you get hit by like a B4.
Yeah, it kind of is like that, but I'd say this is more interesting AA regiment.
Oh,
because
really?
you still can put Echelon 2 big AAPs in this division, and you can spam Hellcats.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you have 3 Hellcats, and you can get... Wow, I didn't even know that. Yeah, that makes it even better than the Airborne then, because you have some of the late game... I mean, yeah, you have no tier 6. I guess you have the Tortoise, but... That's
like
actually
you can play around with it. You can play Jackson on Echelon 2, or you can play a big AAPs and play with Hellcats. But just because it's so focused around, even though it might not look like it, but it's focused around providing the big AA pieces and have some early on pressure. You don't have the Scott, but you still have the
yeah, you have the T48 as well. You have the T48, which is It's not as good as the Martyr, but it's not too far off. And usually, like, the Martyr can be a bit overkill in Echelon 1, usually.
It can heal stuff.
Yeah, it does the job, right? It gets the job done.
And just because how the slots are looking like in this deck, I can tell you straight up, it's better than the SPG one. Just because the slots are kinda done in a way where you can build more of a flexible deck.
Okay, so it's better than the American SPG one, you say?
Yeah, definitely better than American SPG. It's one of the strongest decks, just because how you can run around with Hellcats and Sluggers and just provide anti-tank across the map.
And the Hellcats are so hard to deal with because they're fast. Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'm coming. Do we just give this an S tier rating? Is that what this is? A potential S tier?
I think it's a potential S tier rating with this anti-tank regiment.
All right. Well, the SPG regiment there of the Soviets is looking pretty lonely, so we'll slam this here. All right, and that's the final tank or artillery regiment, right? I believe. So we're gonna move on to.
I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah, let's move back to the Soviets, and we'll begin with the 1st Infantry Regiment, of course. I barely remember playing this. I think this was the first regiment I played, and then I haven't touched it since. What are your thoughts on this guy?
I think actually the infantry regiments, the first ones, like the beginning ones, are like really good. They're actually low-key one of the best ones.
They're a bit more
they're the only one that
diverse.
get the and they're the only one that gets minus 10% on basic infantry, so like the riflemen veterans and stuff.
On basic infantry, you mean? Is it the only one, really?
Yep, it's the only one, I believe.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that's of course very good, considering you usually bring quite a bit.
Yep, you do. It's how you play it is you just you can provide some AA, maybe not the top tier one, but early on you can provide AA, and that's important. You have slots to take planes in, you have slots to take grenadiers in. Later on you can take some saboteurs, and the really underappreciated combo is you can take saboteurs in Echelon 2 with the crates. The crates contain, if you don't want to play the plane in Echelon 2, you take the saboteurs and you take the crate instead of the airstrike. And how it looks like, you've got 80 grenades inside the crates, you give them to the saboteurs, and you guarantee kills on everything. Like,
oh my god, I haven't even considered that.
It's so toxic.
Yeah, so you get stealth units with anti-tank nades in Echelon 2 then. That sounds nuts.
And the best thing is you can, in the Soviet one, you can buy NKVD, and that's like a dedicated anti-infantry squad.
Oh, this one has NKVD as well?
Yep, in Echelon 2, instead of the riflemen veterans, you just put the NKVD, and you give the NKVD 80 grenades. And, for example, people are trying to chase you with infantry, and you have a machine gunner that can mow down them down on their side of the map, and still run to the gun and kill it with 80 grenade. It's such a meme. And it's actually really strong, because the sniper you get in this team, it's almost an elite sniper variant, just without an automatic, like semi-automatic rifle.
Okay, Jesus
it's
Christ,
crazy.
I didn't know this. The good thing I have you here. You're here for a reason, right? You're bringing us some knowledge. Yikes, okay, so this is actually really good then, huh? It does sounds a bit micro-intensive, so if you're like a beginner, I guess it's going to be hard to utilize the power.
The other problem is you can't really run engineers here.
Yeah, I mean, you have combat engineers,
There's
I guess?
just no slots. What I like to run is, if you're running solo queue, the best combination you can do, in Echelon 1, you just put anti-tank rifles, and Echelon 2, you go bazooka grenadiers. So you can deal with those annoying light tanks early on.
Yeah. The PTRS is actually quite nuts.
Yeah, it is, because it's like a sniper rifle.
Yeah, and the range, and you can like keep them camouflaged, just keep shooting, and even versus heavier targets, you just keep detracking them all the time. It really stops. Yeah, it really stops pushes so hard. All right. Well. Okay. let me just hear where would you rate this? Because I don't
I
think
think
I'm
you have
qualified.
access to everything. Like you have the top tier infantry, you have airstrikes, you can take Katyushas in, and it's not blocking each other. Because in the Echelon 3 you can take the top tier stuff without. Yeah, you can take both Katyusha and assault infantry if you want to, and then spam riflemen veterans and still have a place for like a car and some medics. And I'd say the first infantry battalion, just because you can take saboteurs with those AT-grenades if you want to meme. You can play a really cheap front line with riflemen veterans that are being discounted. It's an S tier.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not qualified to give my opinion on this because I didn't even know you could do that with this regiment. Okay, well, S tier. All right, I'm convinced. All right, we're learning now. I kind of want to go and jump into a game and play that. Not gonna lie. Well, moving on, we got the recon regiment for the Soviets, which of course comes with the NKVD. I actually played this quite a bit yesterday, and my God, it's. This is one of the few regiments where I feel like it truly becomes a RTS, because there's really like nothing here that you manually control, which I usually do with most of my other regiments. But this one you're more like microing spotters with like snipers early on, and yeah, it's amazing versus some very specific playstyles, which you see a lot in lower tiers. Like you see a lot of trenches, you see a lot of digging in, and snipers with a spotter just destroys those compositions, I feel. And then late game, you of course have the NKVD, you have the elite snipers, you have a lot of like saboteurs, you have so much like vision here. Then again, you don't have that concrete front line. But I would say just from playing this yesterday, the potential in this regiment is quite insane. And I think the thing is, you don't have that capping, you don't have that front line, so it's probably a bit difficult to solo carry with this. But my God, does it feel strong if you got like anyone on your team actually capturing territory.
Yeah, but you see that's the problem, the territory control. Like that's the main thing you do. And on top of that, you provide saboteurs and stuff. And first infantry can both provide saboteurs and hold the front line and provide some early game AA. This one can provide late game AA, but is in the costly slot, in the pretty important slot. Overall, it has really strong opening, decently strong, because instead of snipers, you actually run sentinels. Those are like comparable to Jaggers, and those are the only early game infantry you can push with. Those are like the single man soldiers from the patrol squad. They have the semi-automatic rifles. They're really good.
But I thought these guys couldn't capture. Can they capture? No, they can't capture.
They are capturing really slow, but that's why you're pushing with those. And then, just because they're so cheap, you put some recruits behind them and just push up the front line.
So you use snipers with that then? Or no, you don't use snipers at all, you mean?
You don't use snipers and you don't use scouts early on. You need some proper AT. Like every single infantry deck has to have bazookas in it. Without bazookas, you cannot play this game, to be fair. And then, in the end, it's the only deck that can take elite snipers, but they're really matchup dependent, because if you get artillery in the enemy team that's covering his position with like sentinels and stuff, with like Jaegers, you can't really kill him, and he's just gonna blow up your snipers. It's really powerful and really micro-intensive deck. It's like, you get the value if you play correctly, and that's great, but I'd say it's an A-tier deck, just because you kinda have to make sacrificial choices, and you can't really hold the front line that great, especially early on. Later on it's better, because you get elite snipers for some control, but in earlier echelons, it's kind of hard to do.
One thing I noticed while playing this yesterday also, which makes this regiment pretty bad, especially if you're queuing for raiding and not for winning, is that providing vision, even though like you give vision to all your artillery that kills everything, that actually doesn't net you any score. And because the MMR is like performance based, you actually don't get enough rating unless you kill stuff, which you still can do, but the fact that you can like provide constant vision over the entire map and not get any score from your friendly artillery killing things makes this pretty, like, it makes it not very good to actually grind with this. Would you agree with that?
It's kind of the point.
Yeah.
True, but you
Like
you can't like really.
you're winning the game for your team, but you're not really like you don't actually get rewarded for it.
The funny part is that the scouts, saboteurs, and stuff, they're not there for spotting. They're there to get 80 grenades and just run at things.
Okay.
Because if you trade one saboteur for one piece, it's already a huge positive thing.
Mm.
But the problem of controlling the front line, it's and then actually carrying the game because you don't really have the longevity to play a longer game and capture later on. It's either A or B tier, in my opinion. So you're gonna have to decide how important for you the frontline control is.
I think because it plays so differently from the other regiments, like the recon regiments in general, I feel like just plays so much differently. I would say if you can master this, it's probably extremely good, and it might even be S. But because it's so hard to actually play it, I think it goes down a bit. So I think A is a solid rating for it.
I think we're gonna put it in B. I'm gonna justify it when we're gonna come to the German version.
Oh, okay, because yeah, that's the SPG SPG discussion going to happen again. Okay. All right, well, we're gonna move on with the next Soviet one, which is the motorized one, which I've played quite a bit, but I will say again, similar to the SPG discussion we had, the German one is better, and the German one is a lot more fun in my opinion, because it just has more crazy options.
You know, I would say that it's more. I would say it's more fun if the Pack 40 half track was in Echelon 2. Then I would agree.
Yeah.
But since it's in Echelon 3, it's kind of meh. The main thing.
It's still fun though.
Yeah, but you know, the problem is the Russian one, you just play M2A1s, the half track was 50 cals. And then you still have a tier 5 special infantry, the guards. They even have a sniper in the squad. And the problem when we compare this to the German half track has really like a count arc of fire, and the Russian half tracks and the American ones
they're 360 because they're in like
and they have a 50 cal to kill other light vehicles. And they're just because of the existence of 50 cal, they're kind of countering the enemy, the German one. Just because the German one, it might be cheaper. Yep, but the half tracks are just so much worse. It's kind of crazy. Here, it's actually really good. The overall the regiment is really good because all you do is you push with those half tracks, Echelon 1 and Echelon 2. That means enemy has to have some kind of AT or armor to stop you. Like infantry, just pure infantry won't stop you.
I think the motorized regiments, like across the board, are the best infantry regiments in my mind, because you get those half tracks, which means you can just always push like the AI line extremely easily. So your opponent always has to respond to you somehow.
Yep, and then in Echelon 3 you even get some medium armor, and you still have some decent support options.
Yeah.
And just because the Soviet one has the guards that are really good, they're like the best tier 5 infantry. They have the 50 cal half tracks, and then they have the most meme unit from the Soviet is the BA-64, the machine gun, it's like a machine gun jeep that's armor, and it can even, I think, what happens is you're just running. It's so fast that the AI, when someone right clicks you, can't really calculate
I've seen that.
properly.
They don't even throw the
they're
nades.
missing. They're missing everything. Yep. And it's kind of crazy. And I'd say overall, it's like a really strong combination of the things, because you still have a place to take grenadiers in. You still can take PTRS.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just thinking, like, I played mostly with the German motorized one, and I would put that, like, I would say that's really good. That would be like S tier in my mind. And now you're telling me this is probably better because of those things. I'm thinking, is it the other one that's worse, or is this one better?
This one is like one of the strongest. Like, just because there's a guard like a tier 5 guards infantry. It's overall, like, this is an S tier deck. Like, the amount of stuff you throw in at the opponents and the pressure you can put in on the front line. Like, if someone won't react, You're gonna be at their spawn with a half track and an infantry capping
And
behind it.
it's also an infantry regiment, which means it's one of those that you can actually solo carry with. Would you even say this is S plus potentially? I'm just thinking about the infantry
not that
regiments.
great,
I mean,
but
it's
not that great, but still really good, really potent. Because S plus has to be reserved for something
the super
really
broken
crazy,
stuff.
and you'll see.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, let's move on with the engineer regiment for the Soviets. And I think, personally, I think this one is just the worst version of the other two, which damages my view of this quite a bit. Especially the American one, I think, is extremely good. So I would say this is pretty bad in comparison, which would lower its rating. Because why would you pick
I'm
this
gonna
if you
give
can
you
pick?
I'm gonna give you a hint. The American Engineer Battalion is the worst.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna
Oh,
tell you why soon.
okay.
I'm waiting for your comparison first, because it's kind of important for me to see how you understand this.
Yeah, so in my mind, you know, you got the combat engineers, of course, and all the other support units, but why I think the American one is so good is because you get the 1 of 5 Sherman already, I think in Echelon 2, if I'm not mistaken. We're gonna not look at it now, but you get it quite early. Am I mistaken there, or... I'm pretty sure. Let me just check. Let me just save. I only have the crab.
I don't think you get 105 Sherman.
Yeah, maybe I'm mistaken. Because that's what I had in my mind. Okay, I'm completely wrong. Yikes. Well, that's why I have you here. Alright. Let me just hear your opinion then.
Generally, how the engineers and combat engineers combo works is just so crazy powerful right now in the meta.
I mean, you're
And
just
how the
spamming mines. That's what I'm thinking, right?
spamming mines and spamming some structures. So you just put one soldier inside. And why the structures are so good is because you have the veteran sappers you can take in Echelon 2, and they're almost free. Like, when you look at this, I think it's in the second slot in Echelon 3, in Echelon 2.
Second slot?
And yeah, it's second slot, Echelon 2. You have the veteran sappers.
Yeah.
They cost lower than 3 points, and they're like a veteran SMG guy that costs 9. They have the same stats, but the only difference is that they don't cap territory. And the only disadvantage, they have even more advantages because they have better in structures fighting. Like, they have crazy bonuses while being in the structures.
Yeah, building defense expert and fortification assault expert. Jesus.
Yep, you just put them around the houses, you put them around your structures, and you push with your shitty ass infantry later on, and they just clear out everything. Like, they're so costly to get rid of, it's crazy.
Damn. All right. Well,
it's just a unit
that I have you here. I'm learning so much. All right.
And then on top of that, you provide AA from Echelon. You provide heavy AA from Echelon 2 and 3, so you got that covered.
Yeah.
And then later on, you can play rockets, rocket artillery for control. You can play some more veteran sappers. You can play some tanks. That's like overall really strong. And the medics. The funny stuff about medics is you can put. You probably know that, but those are the only medics that can kill any soldier on the map. Not the friendlies too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really good the regiment to have in those fatigue matches that last forever, because
and
it
the
saves
veteran
the teammates.
sappers, they don't even affect the calling timer. Like, they're not blocking you from calling anything else. That's also kind of ridiculous.
Oh, because they have like 100% reduction or something?
Yep, they are considered support units.
Okay, it's only 30%, but still, that's pretty massive. All right.
No. Overall, they don't take any. They're not even a support unit. They take 0. Yeah, you don't have to have an open train track on the right side.
Oh, like paratroopers and stuff. Okay. Damn.
Yep.
Wow.
And
okay.
Overall,
well,
you probably know the verdict. Maybe it's not gonna be S+, but it's gonna be S.
All right. Wow. I want to play this too now. Holy shit! You're opening up a whole new world. Sick. All right. Yeah, well, let's put it in S tier. I'm solely convinced. I was actually pretty sure this would be one of the worst engineer battalions, but now, all right. Interesting. Well, moving on, we go for the assault regiment, and this is probably the Soviet infantry one I played the most with, and I'm not convinced it's that good. I'm probably missing things like guards here or something that you would say are really strong, which I haven't really been using at all. But my initial hunch is that this would be like the infantry regiment, where it's like really good when it just comes to infantry in general, and you probably, I don't know, I shouldn't change my opinion too much just before I hear you speak. I would say
Yeah,
this is
probably.
probably just a solid infantry regiment. Is it better than like the motorized in my mind? Arguably, but I'm a bit on the fence here, not to embarrass me any further. What would you say?
The problem is with those elite infantry, they're like really limited and they're really expensive, like overall, and they're just gonna get rolled through by a half track for 15 points, and that's like the biggest problem.
Yeah,
The
just
only
looking
cool
at the
thing
cost here,
from the Soviet,
for 10 Marines, that's 87 points, with the reduction. But
yeah,
meanwhile,
it's
you can
already
just
reducted,
yeah, and you can like for 87 points, you can get what? You can get 30 veteran sappers.
Yeah, you see, that's the point, and they're gonna outtrade you so hard, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Like this deck, it has no potential of providing any AA to the team.
true.
So you're just gonna get clapped by an air spamming opponent that's just gonna destroy all of your infantry by using Mustang's rocket drop. The only cool thing overall, like this is just playing a bit of elite infantry with an air support. That's how this deck looks like. And the only thing about the only cool thing about the Russian one is that their assault infantry, it's probably the best tier 6 infantry in the game, because they have a flamer. I think two of them have the mining stuff. How is it called?
Sweeper.
They can sweep while just being a normal infantry. That's also super helpful later on, because there's just such a mine spam. It's crazy. It's overall probably the best tier 6 infantry. The problem is you're gonna get out traded, and you don't have that much stuff to go into the late game and just
if you're not utilizing the medics like fully here, you're gonna run out of units quite fast.
Yeah, and the way how they are being recalled blocks your queue, because they're being recalled as an entire squad, even though there's gonna be one soldier there.
Yeah, I
and
know.
Then you're gonna have like 4 different squads with 2 soldiers each, and you're gonna have to waste so much time calling them in.
We wish they would give, or like maybe in the future they can do like a quality of life thing where they like bunch them up more when you heal them, so you don't have
I
to
think
like
it's also a part of
a
part of balance thing.
Probably.
I'm gonna say it's probably the best assault regiment, and it's not gonna get high score just because it's missing like if an enemy have a heavy AA, you have no way of dealing with that, and then you're just dying to one machine gun.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, most of the others have a lot of half tracks, and this has quite few, so that would drop it down quite a bit. Even though it has that strong infantry unit, like, is that enough to really savor? Maybe this is another C tier?
Yeah, probably. As for infantry, even though it's so cool, like you have the Marines Echelon too, they're just not making a difference.
Yeah, I mean, they're just not efficient.
It's not like you can't play it. You can play frontline, and whenever you're gonna do, for example, like a pre-made composition, just having infantry, like a strong infantry in front and some plane support is enough, then it's gonna be really good.
Alright. Well,
I mean, it kinda depends, but I'd say yes, C tier is correct.
Let's move on to the next one, which is the German 1st Infantry Battalion, of course, which I'm assuming, if I don't know, we're going off the rating of the Soviet one, this is probably going to be your better Soviet pick or better infantry pick. I don't think this one has the AA gun though that the Soviet one has.
The problem, is you have the 20mm AA guns.
Yeah, and they are
Like
worse.
those are not good enough to provide anti-air cover. That's like already one minus from what Soviets offer. You have worse planes.
Yeah.
The airstrike from BF is okay, but then Stukas is like really slow, and that's a
Yeah, and
problem.
it's also like they don't have the rockets, the Stukas, so they only
You
have the
can play
bombs.
it in a way where you take two Nebelwerfers in Echelon 2 and uh, just like spam them around. You just call them in, recall them, call them in, recall them.
Mm.
You take two of them and you can play it in this kind of cheesy way of trying to be an RT player, but they're taking so much space in your deck. I don't think it's justifiable, because whenever the shots lands close to that, it just blows up.
Yeah.
I think it's not that great, just because the Soviets have a bit of different equipment in that regiment, that they can provide a bit more value. That's how I feel about that. But there is some things you can do with that, because overall the value is a bit smaller, but it can be compensated. Because, for example, you can take Brandenburgers in Echelon 2.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I mean, you
and
got
those,
the NKVD as the Soviet one, right? So is
yep,
this?
but let me get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
NKVD, they don't come with a half track, and those do. They even get reduction here, and in the half track you can find an AT-grenades, meaning you
Oh.
don't have to micro with chests and stuff, and you have your support slot open on the right.
Okay.
And I'd say overall, even though the base value because of the planes and stuff is a bit smaller, the fact that you have some strong tools, like for example Panzer Grenadiers later on, that they come with a, or you can just play with a Grenadiers and modern infantry, stuff like that. I think it's also gonna be pretty high, just because how the deck works. The fact that you have a Panzerwerfer in Echelon 3 is like a really huge trump card, because it's probably the best rocket arty in the game.
Yeah, I actually didn't know about that until like just a few games ago. Actually, today we played versus some infantry regiments and they brought Panzerwerfers, which surprised me. I didn't know this was available in this, tier.
I think it's only first infantry that can take it, and maybe one more, like the assault one.
Yeah.
But I'd say overall, it has just a tiny touch less value from your base stuff than the Russian one, but you have some cool units and some cool tools later on that you can use, that I think brings it on the similar power level.
All right. So you want to go with the same? What's the S tier for this?
Yeah, probably it's an S tier. Even though it's a starting battalion, it's really strong.
All right. All right. I'll just agree with you. Maybe we reshuffle that. Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Next up, we have the recon regiment for the Germans. See if we can keep up the pace here a bit. We're already like an hour through.
All right. It's gonna be the same thing as with the Russian one, but you
Yeah, I
get the
was thinking that.
Brandenburger infantry.
Yeah.
And Brandenburg infantry has a anti-tank grenades in the half track, meaning you don't have to micro that much. You
Yeah.
still get cool stuff.
Very similar.
And it's just tiny touch better because of that. So I think it's gonna move up one spot.
You don't have
You play
the
it the same way.
Sentinels in this, but you have the Jaegers
You
instead.
have Jaegers.
Yeah.
The Jaegers are the same. It's just a different name. They have the semi-auto rifle that's really good at deleting infantry.
All right. Yeah, so let's just put it on the same tier. They're basically two like extremely similar, those two regiments. Very little difference.
Then later on you can provide AA. That's also important.
All right. Next up, we have actually my favorite regiment in the game. Now, if it's good or not, that's arguable. But this is like so diverse. I love it. It doesn't have anti-air, of course. That's the one big drawback of the motorized battalion. But oh my god, it has so many fun tools. You know, it has flame half tracks. It has the pack 40 half tracks, which, you know, they're so expensive that there's no way they are good. But they're
Yeah,
so
they're
fun
not.
to
I'd say
use.
they would be good if they would be in Echelon too,
Even at
instead of the
50, even at
flame.
50, because it's like
Yeah,
such
I
an
would
heavy,
imagine
expensive
having a
price.
big AT gun in infantry deck. That would be a game like a really. That
Yeah.
would put this in S plus tier, but
Okay.
there's not. You
Yeah.
don't have a pack 40 in Echelon 2 as an infantry player.
Yeah, but it's so fun to use, and I just love it. You know, you can just keep poking. You have so many half tracks. You
Yeah, it's
basically
a
have like
meme
an
unit.
infinite amount of half tracks. Like I'm bringing what 4, 4, 8 plus 3 more. So I'm bringing 11 infantry half tracks, and then I have to pack 40 half tracks. You got some pumas if you want. You can swap in some flame half tracks. You even have like the mortar half tracks or the stummel. Like you have so many fun options in this one, and it's just so fun to use. So definitely the most fun I've had in
But the
MoW2 is this
problem
one.
of the half track,
Yeah.
the problem of the half track is just too great for this deck. Like the difference of the half track
Yeah, the
value
Soviet half
is
tracks
just
are better.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's like you have a Puma, but Puma dies one shot. I think whenever something has a 75mm gun,
Yeah.
it's just gonna
Yeah.
one clap Puma.
Even like some of the
Mm.
AA units, like just a single burst, if you like take a couple shells, like you're just instantly decrewed. I will say a shout out here to the 2-2 in Echelon 1. I actually think it's nuts. Would you agree with that? Because, you know, usually on some of the maps, you're fighting in so many urban areas with a shit ton of garrisons, and I feel like this is one of the better, like, early garrison clearing tools, because it instantly suppresses everything. Like, if you got one and you have, like, 10 units separated in 10 garrisons, this can suppress all 10 with, like, a single burst, which I think makes it really good. But
Yeah,
then again, it's
it's
super
good, but it
squishy,
just
so
dies. Yeah.
yeah, true.
Mm, you know, the main thing is you keep calling the infantry in half tracks, but just the fact that you don't have a tier 5 infantry as a German means
Yeah.
that in Echelon 2 you have both worse half tracks and worse infantry than your opponents.
But it's so fun, though.
Yeah, it is. I know it's fun, but you know you have to take into consideration
Yeah.
that the half track value, even though later on you have the Panzer Grenadier, they're kind of redundant because you want to play tank commando anyway, so it's like a tank plus infantry.
Yeah.
So that's the way to go pretty much, because the super elite infantry is expensive. It's okay, it can fight, but it can get mowed down pretty easily. And I'd say overall, let me check. Can you take Panzerwerfer in this? I don't think so. I
I
think it's
don't
limited
think
to
so
tier
either.
5.
I'll check.
Probably it is.
Maybe in this slot? No, you can't.
Yep, so that's also a big deal breaker, because all the other rockets artillery are kinda just a
Yeah,
one
it's
pop
very
for
good.
everything. And I'd say, even though you're biased, you need to agree that it's not
Yeah,
S
I mean,
tier because
it's
of
not
the
it's not
half.
a having most fun tier list. It's a power level tier list, right? So it's, of course, it's not the strongest.
It's better to have any half track than to not have. It's better to have a shitty half track than to not have any. But if I would have to pick, I would like to have a 50 cal half track, let's say.
All right, I'm gonna make a shout here, and I'm gonna say A tier. Would you agree with me, or would you put this even on B tier?
No, just because you have a half tracks, they're shitty, but you still have them. You can
Yeah,
still
you
mow
still
down
have them at
infantry.
least. All right, A
But
tier it is.
it's a solid A tier.
Yeah. Cool, I'm happy. It's not bad anyway. All right, let's move on to the engineer regiment for the Germans, which have like the Stern Pioneers, and of course I'm assuming the same case goes here for the assault Sappers or
Yep,
veteran
it's like
Sappers.
the same. It's like the same as a Russian, but on top of that, you get the Storm Pioneers that are also uber cheap. They have a
Yeah.
flamethrower. They're like veteran sappers on steroids, and like on top of that, you just have you still have the same core of just building up, pushing with those veteran sappers, buying ground, mining stuff. It's just like in the current meta, just the way you play this is just an S plus. you just have the tools to deal with everything. You just
Yeah.
provide anti-air for the team.
Yeah, you have anti-air already in Echelon 2 as well with AT-nades, or you have like you even have rocket RT in this with the Nebels, and you have of course plane options. Yeah, a solid all-rounder for sure.
Yeah, there's like no weak points of this kind of gameplay. You just push
Yeah.
up a bit, you mine, you build some structures, you put those singular veteran sappers that they have to deal with, and if they misplay, the one veteran sapper is just gonna kill entire squad trying to approach the building.
Yeah. Would you say this is equally as good as the Soviet one then? Or perhaps even better?
Nope, it's gonna be the S plus, because the Soviets they do not get the Sturm Pioneers, and it's
the Sturm
important.
Pioneers alone makes it okay.
Yep,
Interesting.
because in Echelon 3, when you face the Soviet deck, they can take assault infantry with a full price, and they pay for, I think they pay 60 points for
they don't
one
get
single.
any cost reduction on it.
Yeah, they pay for one single squad. They pay 60 points, and here you pay for 20 men, and you can just
support
counter
infantry is
enemy.
minus 60% on this. That's so nuts. I'm blocking it with my camera here, but there's minus 60% cost reduction on support infantry. That's kind of nuts.
Yep. It's just to counter everything in the meta. This.
Yeah, so we found another S plus tier regiment. Alright, finally we got the Assault Regiment, and you mentioned here that you don't like these, and we put the Soviet one arguably the highest out of all of them. So my initial go-to that this might be another D tier then.
I would say not a D tier, just because you have a Panzerwerfer, and you have a Panzergrens that are like they're in reduced cost, so you can later on cosplay like a motorized battalion.
Yeah,
so
and you have the Panzerwerfers too. Yeah,
that's how it works. And I'd say Soviet infantry might be a bit better, the Echelon 3 one, because they have a flamer, they have a body armor, they have some cool stuff like a sweeper. But still, the Panzerwerfer and the fact that you get the discounted elite infantry half track, I think it's a similar power level.
All right. Well, let's just put it next to the other one and move on to the Americans. Which of course will begin with the 1st Infantry of the Americans. Which again I've not played in a long time, but just judging from how you evaluate some of the 1st Infantry battalions, I'm thinking this is going to be quite high as well. It has a bit of everything. It has very diverse like options in all of the slots, and it of course has that cost reduction on generic infantry, which the other ones don't.
Here it's pretty much the same story. Like you either play it semi-saboteur regiment or you play it entire front line. But here you do it kind of differently because your riflemen are more expensive. But starting from a regular rifleman, they get the semi-automatic rifle.
Yeah, which is better.
That's pretty strong. Yep, to have, because you can start rushing stuff and just taking it. And the fact that it's 10% reduction, it might not seem that great, but whenever you have a lot of infantry, it kind of adds up.
Yeah.
Plus, on top of that, you get the P51D, the tier 3 strike. By the way, you never play the A20. A20 is a trap card. The P51, the tier 3 A strike is much better, just because you have the rocket, the rocket drop.
Wait, which one are you referring to now? The P?
Because there are three airstrikes: the P51, P51D, and at A20. P51D is the best one because you either get one big bomb, or you get like a rocket spam that really clears out infantry, and that's all you really need: one big bomb or a rocket.
It's like the same discussion with like the German ones, like the Stuka is like almost worse because it doesn't have those rockets of the Messerschmitts, and they're also a lot slower than the Messerschmitts, which I guess the A20 here is slower than the P51 as well.
Yep, but I think it has like tons more HP. It has like double the HP, I think.
375 versus 200 only actually.
I think all the attack planes like the fighter based are 200, but still they are so fast.
They're so fast, exactly.
Overall, like you again have access to rangers in the end if you want to. You have some meme tools you can use, like the M18 anti-tank rifle or whatever it is, like the recoilless gun.
Yeah,
it's really a meme.
It's fun to use though. It has those fragmentation bombs. You can like blow
Yeah,
out
it is fun.
trenches and stuff with them, which is kind of fun.
Yep, and still you can provide AA with M1 or M16 early on, and then move to some Bofors if you want to.
Yeah.
It's
Does it
overall
have
again.
what AA does it have in Echelon 2? It doesn't have like an M2
It
or
has the
anything.
Bofors, yeah, the tier 3 one.
Bofors, okay. Yeah, it's not amazing.
It's
Does it
better
ever
than-
get? Does it ever get the heavy AA? It doesn't, right? The M2.
Nope, it doesn't.
Okay.
But overall, like the rifleman spam you can do, and just pushing with them, just like constant pressure on the front line while providing some AT behind with anti-tank riflemen or bazookas. You still get access to some cars if you want to. You still can play the saboteur plus chest trick plus crate trick, or you can just drop devils on their heads. Like
The devils. They're not as good as the raiders, but
yeah, but raiders are like tier 6 infantry, and this is tier 4. And overall, I think it again goes into the S tier just because it can do everything, and it can pressure the front line really, really hard.
If you were to like say, how would you rate like the first infantry battalions? Like if you only look at those 3, what would you say would be the best one?
Overall, if we would have to rate,
just the first infantry battalions, only the 3 first infantry.
Then I'd say I would go with probably with a German one, because you have a Brandenburg infantry that covers both your saboteurs and need of AT grenades onto the saboteurs, and you get access to Panzerwerfer later on, so you can clear anything from the map.
All right. Well, next up we have the American, I would guess Recon, right? Yeah, Recon.
Yep.
Similar story here. I would assume you got the sneaky units, but you probably don't run snipers here early as well, just like the other 2.
Yeah, we always run the Watchman, the Pathfinder, I think it's called here, the Pathfinders.
Yeah.
They're like super buffed infantry. The cool thing is that you get the access to the Willys AT Jeep later on, and you can sneak it with saboteurs and just kill tanks. It's kind of crazy.
The Willys AT I've noticed is really strong because it actually camouflages in enemy territory.
Yeah. The only bad thing is that you have your special infantry is Devils, and they're not really that great. But you have a really good AA piece later on the M2 gun, so it's kind of, I would say, compensated. And I think it should go with it's similar power level to the other special battalions.
All right. Yeah, we put them all on B tier, so I'm assuming this is the same story then.
Yep. I mean, they have a bit of different, like they
all suffer. But... They all suffer from the same issue with like territory control.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have is it motorized, I think? Yeah, motorized.
Yep. It's just the same as Russian one, but you get the Willys AT that you can spam with because they're really cheap.
Yeah. So you'd say this is better than the German one as well because you got the 50 cal on the half tracks?
Yep. And you get the Willys AT you can spam if you want to the really
on top of that.
meme here. Yeah. And I'd say it's probably the similar power level to the Soviet one.
Yeah, and they all suffer from the same issue of not having any anti-air, so you can't really judge them from that, but...
Yeah, but overall, the pressure you put
in. Yeah, just the pressure. So this is S tier then, yeah?
Yeah, probably. I would have to say it's S tier.
Yeah, I would agree, I think. Even though it's kind of insane how these regiments lack S tier, but just because you can put so much pressure and you're so mobile, you're like always threatening the fact that you're gonna push in deep. Which means, you know, your opponent just has to keep reacting to you all the time.
Yep, and with those, he also needs to take care of his tanks, and because the Willys AT can just do the funny attack of just yellowing in.
Yeah, Blackson, we were talking about the Willys AT. It's purely about enemy territory. Vehicles generally are always visible in enemy territory, but the Willys AT actually camouflage in enemy territory, which is like unique. There is a few more units that can do that. I'm not sure which ones, but it makes it really, you know, strong because you can like hide it in enemy territory. All right, what's next? 5 a second?
Yeah, I believe so.
So yeah, I would say that this is my least likable regiment. I fucking hate this regiment. It's just so annoying to face this, especially when you play regiments that have limited anti-air, because you're just eventually going to die to the plane strikes.
Yeah, pretty much.
So just because you it's so often you just come into a match and it's simply cursed because one side has no anti-air and the other one has an airborne regiment, and you realize that yeah, the game is over in the loading screen. And just because of that, I would say this is an S+ tier regiment.
Yep, again, you can do the crate trick, but you can take crate in Echelon 1 and then take saboteurs in Echelon 2, and you can just destroy enemy AA with 180 grenade each, just one round, and then
yeah,
just
you
start
get
bombing
saboteurs
them.
in this as well. That's so filthy, because then you can just spot the anti-air and kill them.
Yeah, after you kill a bunch of heavy AT, you just start dropping everything on their head, and it's over. Like, they can just, as well, they're gonna play a bit, but they're just gonna get overwhelmed with those airstrikes so much. And again,
Yeah.
you're not taking the A20Gs, the A20 airstrikes, but you take the P51Ds,
Yeah.
and you just spam them.
All right, that's good to know.
Just because how you can abuse that, and on top of that, you can do some cheesy stuff with paratroopers later on. Like, if enemy has no decent big, like, no, if you're not gonna meet anti-air regiment, you can assume that maximum they're gonna have like a 3 heavy AT, three heavy AA guns per regiment if the regiment is correct. So, for example, the engineer regiment.
I also noticed you actually get the P51D airstrike already in Echelon 1. You don't get the ordinary P51s, you get the good one even already
Yeah,
in
you
Echelon
do,
1.
but you kinda have to take the bazookas anyway. You can't play without them.
Oh, really?
Yep, like every single infantry regiment, you need the bazooka grenadiers, because otherwise the tank just rolls you.
Well, we already said S+ tier, right? You agree with me?
Yep, the longer the game, the more value they're just gonna get, and they're just gonna kill you.
All right, so we move on with is it engineer? I think.
Yep, it's engineer.
So you've already spoiled us here. You said this was the worst one. Could you go a bit into why?
Yep, because you don't have the Echelon 2 AA, and that's the main difference. You don't have the big AA piece,
yeah,
meaning that you can't really provide the anti-air. But other than that, it's still pretty strong, because you get all the cores that the Soviet gets.
Yeah, and the veteran Sappers, of course, it's the same story there. Do you have any equivalent, like the Ström Pioneer? I don't know if you do.
Nope, you don't. You can take the actually, this is the worst again, because the Soviet gets the assault infantry if you want to, and they get the T-34 minesweeper, and those the USA ones just gets the Sherman. They don't get any cool infantry. Neither the Storm Pioneers nor the top tier infantry.
All right. So considering the other engineer regiments got into S+ and S, would you agree with this one being only A?
You know, I'd say the power level of just building on the face of the opponent is still strong. I'd say it's not that strong as a Soviet one, but it's still gonna go into S tier, I think, just because how toxic the veteran sapper plus building plus mines is.
All right, I'm gonna interrupt you and say that this is only A tier, just to like sort of differentiate them a bit, because I do feel like it's because you know they are competing with each other. Why would you ever pick this engineer regiment when you have two just straight up better engineer regiments, right?
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Well, the final one, I believe, is the assault one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and similar story to the other assault ones. They're all very similar. Of course, you have the recoilless anti-tank, which you called a meme, but I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, they're okay, but the main thing that why the American one is cool, because you get the good airdrops. That kind of the fact that you have the P51Ds makes this deck just better because it relies on to getting value from planes. The top tier infantry is the Rangers are also decent. They don't have anything acceptable. They have like a shotguns that are.
Oh yeah, they have the
They're
shotgun.
cool, but they're kind of useless sometimes.
Yeah, but it's unique at least, very unique.
Yeah, but it's nice close range though, because he can just one tap entire team. Because it kind of look. The spread looks like it has the same animation as a plane shooting with MGs on the ground.
Interesting. Well, they're also like the building experts, so I guess that does make this a bit better in like urban areas, similar to like the engineer regiments. But because of the engineer regiment's existence, I still don't quite see why you would pick this. You do mention the airplanes, I guess, but I feel like the engineers do provide a lot more other utility, like with the anti-air, and you get like mines and construction in general. Would you say this one goes next to the other assault regiment?
Yeah, I think it's slightly better.
Oh, slightly
because
better.
The planes are slightly better.
Enough to push it up to B tier, you think?
I think just the fact the other ones have just a tiny bit better tier 6 infantry. I think just because the German one, they also get the Panzerwerfer, and you're missing that. So I think it's similar power level. You just you can play it, but when you get a competent opponent, he's just gonna abuse you. That's the problem of this deck.
All right. Well, time for the final line and the tank line. And of course, we're gonna start with the Soviet tank line. We're gonna start with the 1st Tank Regiment. And yeah, I think this one is an overall decent tank regiment. You got the T-35s in the Echelon 1, which is insane. This is not the only regiment that gets that, of course. But the fact that you can always open up with a double T-35 with an airstrike, I think just makes this extremely strong in Echelon 1. And then, of course, you have all the heavy hitters in later Echelons as well. So yeah, I would say this is pretty good. Is it the best one for Soviets? I don't think so, but I would say that this is a really strong tank regiment.
Yeah, it's decently strong because you combined, as you told, you either play like a T-35 or the T-28 opening, and you still have an airstrike on your command, so that's pretty strong. You can deal with stuff in Echelon 2 because you get access to 85mm guns on the KV-85s. Those are good enough to deal with most stuff.
I mean, you can sort of like tweak this regiment in so many ways because you have so many options. You actually even have 52Ks in Echelon 2, so you can bring AA if you want to in Echelon 2.
Yep, that's also a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it's not like super strong, but it's all right.
Yeah.
You can do most things correctly. You're gonna suffer a bit versus specialized deck. Like you're just not you can't win the face-on fights, but if you play smart, you can outplay and get a lot of value.
Yeah, you can't get the SU-100 in Echelon 2, right? It's only Echelon 3 for this. But
yeah,
I mean, the fact that you at least have access to it means, you know, you're just well-rounded regiment, I feel like. Would you agree?
Then you get access to IS-3s anyway, and
yeah,
they're pretty strong.
Would you agree an A tier on this?
Yeah, probably A tier is a good place to put it.
All right. Moving on to mechanized. And I've seen some really strong players use this, but I would still say that I prefer some of the other mechanized regiments in the other factions. You do get like the carries and stuff. One good thing for the Soviets compared to like for specifically the Germans is that the T-34s are so much better than the Panzer IVs and the Panthers, which is same for goes true for the medium regiment as well, I think. So I would say that they are better than the Germans when it comes to that, but the German one, I believe, can get things like, can't it get a Tiger as well? And I don't think this one can get any anti-air, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure.
The mechanized can get big AA pieces in Echelon 2 and 3, and that's like
it can. Okay.
And you can get SU-85 early on.
In Echelon 2?
Yep, the Echelon 2. And it's good enough to deal with most tanks, apart from the heaviest ones. The cool thing is you can like counter entire... Like if the engineer player does not have like 80 rifle spam early on, but just focuses on grenadiers. You have the flame tank that you can spam with. It's like 14 points, and
Yeah,
it's
the
just
KHT.
yep, and it's like it's actually really strong because you can't put infantry inside the buildings anymore. It just denies display, and it's
Yeah.
like really cool because it's like super cheap. You still have points to take whatever you want, and it kind of counters this kind of building taking meta right now.
Would you really ever pick the KHT over the BT7A? I feel like the BT7A is insane for its cost.
It depends. Like you
like
can
the
take
BT7, the BT7A is one cheaper than the KHT, and it's basically a T35 except you don't have the big body. Because you have the airburst shells, you know. I feel like it's such
you even have a place if you build your deck correctly. You can take KTH in Echelon 2 just to drive around and be a threat because you kill 3 models and you're already up in points.
Yeah, and they capture territory as well.
Yeah, that's a meme. You just go around and you because you have enough slots to take infantry, SU-85, some T-34s, AA, and then take KTs, the KHTs on top of that. Just because the slots are so nice. They're like really generous.
All right. Yeah, and of course you have those BT7As at the start. Yeah, that makes this sound very good to me.
I think it's just it's focused more on the light and medium tank play, but I think it's slightly better version of the first tank regiment, and I think it deserves S tier because you can provide N tier to the team. You can clear the fortifications.
As someone points out here in chat, the thing with all of the mechanized regiments is also that the fact that you get so much infantry presence means you actually have like territory control as well, so you can actually like play. You actually play frontline a lot. You don't relying on an infantry regiment to like support your screen for you or hold your flanks. You can do all of that yourself, which makes it really good. So yeah, you mentioned S tier, and I'm inclined to agree with you there. All right, next up, heavy tank regiment. Yeah, well, do you want to start on this one, or should I just go?
Yeah, I can start. It's at the start, it's the worst version of the first tank regiment start because you don't get the air. Later on, the only difference you can't take big AA anyway, so it's probably not worth it to take small AA. You can take the IS-1 tank. It's cool, but you only get one.
Did you say you could take big AA with this?
No, you can't. You can take only the small AA.
Yeah.
You play IS-1 in Echelon 2, but it kind of blocks. You can have just one tank plus some infantry for screens.
Yeah.
The worst part is that it's kind of whenever you have one tank plus infantry pushing, the opponents can just change a flank, and you have to react by driving around the big slowest tank.
Yeah.
It also the IS-1 is kind of vulnerable because it has like a frontal machine gun and turret machine gun, but it doesn't get anything on top, meaning that the control overall of the field is pretty bad. Whenever someone has a dedicated AT, like whatever RT AT focus there is, they're just gonna slap you around. Like having one big unit is never a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the heavy tanks regiments in general are quite poor because you're filling your like regiment with like the heavy tanks, but you're not gonna be throwing them away essentially. So some of the other tank regiments are better because you get all of those things and you get the heavy tanks, and you don't need to bring like 6 or 7 heavy tanks in your regiment. You only need like 1 or 2 because you're generally not going to be throwing them away, right? You're going to be keeping them alive. And here, I don't know, because of the lack of support, I feel like you just become like a punching bag for the enemy's RT. And
I mean, if it depends. If your opponents are not that great of players, they're gonna suffer because they don't know how to deal with that. But I think in the current meta, how it works, the heavy tank battalions are not that great. So I would say probably B tier. Because the Soviet one has a cool tanks, that's why.
Not even lower. I would say even lower than that. Just looking at some of these regiment that we have put in B tier.
I think the late game of the Soviet heavy tank, the IS-3, is just crazy good. That's why. I
Yeah,
would
but
put the
you
other
can get
ones.
you can get IS-3s in some of the other regiments too, can't you?
Yeah, probably you can, but you still have a IS-1 at the start. I mean, yeah, we can go C tier. I would say I would agree on the C tier. It's
Alright.
not
Yes, I convinced you on something. I'm happy.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So yeah, let's move on to the medium tank regiment, the Soviet one. And I would say, you know, all the medium regiment, they have this thing where they open up with a tier 3 medium, right, in Echelon 1. And I would say this is not the strongest, but I would say that the fact that the T-34s in general are so cost efficient, I would say this is one of the better medium tank regiments. Would you agree with that?
Yep, because you can play aggressive, and just because how the slopes works and
Yeah.
all this stuff. You know, actually the strongest open you can do is not the T-34, but you take the T-28 with T-28E and the T-28, because you can take two tanks at the same time, and you just roll over and kill their script. That's kind of hilarious.
Wait,
Just
what
because
does the T-28E have?
it has like a better armor. It's like like an upgraded version of the T-28
Oh,
with a better armor.
I'm not even sure if I've seen that unit on the field.
Because people don't realize that it's a good opening, but just because it costs 8 points, you still can take T-28 and you can just roll through and kill enemy script so effectively with those two tanks. And whenever opponent's gonna have one tank, they're just gonna get blasted.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I believe that it has the like an upgraded version of the 76mm cannon, if I'm not mistaken, because I think it has the same gun as a T-34.
Oh, really? Well, I'm not gonna look at that right now, but yeah, I
Yep,
always thought the
it's the same gun.
T-28s. I always
It's the
thought the
same gun as the
T-28s were worse than like the T-35s. But
because the T-28 has a worse gun than the T-34, like the 1940 version, but the T-29E has the same gun as the T-34.
Oh god, and it's a heavy tank. Man, that's kind of nuts because the T-34 is actually one command point more. Which means you can't roll like a T-28 with it.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, learned something new. Wow, that makes this regiment even better then. But in general, I think this one is really good, as I mentioned, because of the T-3485s. They are better versions of the Panzer IV at literally everything. They're better. They have better armor. They have a better gun. They have better shell. They have better speed, and they cost cheaper. So yeah, I think this one is the better medium tank regiment out of all of them.
Yeah, probably you can play like the most aggressive gameplay with that.
Yeah.
And I think overall, just the way how you can play it, because Echelon 2, you can take T-34-85 and T-34-57, and you're able to kill IS-1s, you're able to kill Tigers, just
Oh
because
yeah,
you've
I
got
can
the
get the
two
57.
tanks that
Yeah.
that just punch through the armor.
Yeah.
And it's like the best AT combo in the game on Echelon 2. Like you can't deal with it. You're just gonna die if you see competent opponent doing that. Like you can't push into that.
Yeah.
Because most regiments are gonna be limited to like one good unit, and this can get two. Like the fact you combine 85 with 57 as an AT option is crazy.
So, considering we put the first tank regiment on A, would you put this above or below? Is it as good as mechanized, for instance?
I would probably, for a solo queue, I would put it as S+. Because you
all
just
the way
put,
up there.
Yep, you just put some rifleman recruits in the deck. First, you clear out the script with your T-28s.
Yeah.
You still have some leftover tanks. Because you can take 4 of them, meaning you can push with 2 waves of those tanks, clearing 2 sides of the maps. Even though you lose them, it doesn't matter later on. And then you just take rifleman recruits and you push them with your tanks, and you don't even fight with them. You instantly lay them on the ground and you just clear with tanks. And the fact that you can make this combination of T-34, 85, and 57, and that you have a SU-100 later on that you can deal with heavy tanks, it's just this deck can just deal with every threat on the map and can put a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's one of my favorite tank regiments for sure. All right. I was a bit surprised you put it on S plus though, considering it like, yeah, as Magnus mentions here, it doesn't have anti-air and stuff like that. But
You know,
the thing is that your win condition is like slightly different with this regiment, because your win condition is pushing and winning the game by territory, and then like the fatigue matchups with air and anti-air, it's like less relevant. Because you're just putting on so much pressure.
Whenever your tanks are really mobile, meaning it's really hard to die from bombs.
Yeah, like, it's like you're not running around with a fat like IS-3 here, so you're not. And even if you lose one, like the regiment is filled with T-34s. You're running like 8 T-34s or something. So even if you lose like a few to planes, it's like generally going to be fine. Now he mentioned he mentioned you run a T-28E, which is 8 command points, and then you run a T-28, which is 7. That's what he mentioned, C3. So you do one of each. Alright, next up we have the Heavy Assault Tank Regiment, which is basically the KV regiment. You have a huge cost reduction on all the KV versions, like the KV1, the KV8 and the KV2. My hunch, I've played this quite a bit, I think it's extremely fun, because you can basically like, you can actually have like 8 or something KV2s in this if you want to, and that's hilarious to play. But I do think it's pretty bad, because I think the KV2 is like one of the worst SPGs, but you can have a lot of them, and they are cost efficient, I would say, but they do pale in comparison to like a Broom Bear or like a 105 Sherman.
Let me tell you something. Even though there is a KV2 on the background of the deck, you're not running KV2s, you're running BT7As and SU-122s early on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing lately, but initially I mostly just run KV2s in this.
Because BT7A in this deck costs like 12 points or 13, something like that.
It's actually the same as the mechanized. Was it mechanized? The one we talked about earlier, it's the same cost.
And there is the crazy part is that you can call the tanks instantly, like the BT7As and the KV2s, and it's such a meme. Like you just lose and you call...
logistics timer. Yeah.
The thing is that you get the cool late thingies. Like late game, you're pretty strong because you get access to everything, that you ever dreamt of while playing Soviets.
Yeah.
The cool stuff is you can take more than the first tank regiment, more of the cool stuff, and it's discounted.
Yeah.
I think it's just a different version of the first tank regiment, focused more of an HE spam, the tanks that spam HEs.
Yeah, because
it can work.
All the tanks are so cost efficient here, because you have those cost reductions. You can bring so many, which means you can be a bit more aggressive here than you can be in the first tank regiment.
Yeah, pretty much. But I would not say it's like a better regiment. But it's cool because you actually can run KV2s, SU-122s semi-competitively just because of the price reductions.
Yeah. I also see it doesn't have any anti-air whatsoever, which of course makes it quite a bit worse than the first, which actually comes with the big AA guns.
Yeah, later on.
Yeah, in Echelon 2 it has the 52k right in the first tank, so that means it's a lot worse purely due to that, in my opinion. But it does enable that extra or different playstyle, as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's fun, but is it good?
That's the question.
Like, I don't think it's that great, because when you have heavy tanks, you're gonna suffer to the planes.
Okay, so would you put this next to heavy tank on the C tier?
Probably a B tier, because you get the cool units. Like,
yeah, but is it good? Actually. Is it good? This is not a fun tier list. This is a strong tier list.
Thinking about is BT7A good? Because I think it is. Same as SU-122.
Yeah, but you have that in the other regiments as well at the same price. Because that's not
necessarily
the KV.
At the same price. I think we can put it on the same power level. If we're talking.
Yeah, in mechanized it costs the same, and mechanized I feel like it's just a better version, or better in general, because you have much more like diverse tools in the mechanized one.
Yeah, probably, and you still lack the infantry because
yeah,
the tanks are just so expensive.
Yeah, so I would put this next to the heavy in my mind, which would
Yeah,
be C
probably.
tier.
It's much more fun though. We have to
It's more
remember.
fun, true, true. It is more fun. I agree with that, 100%.
Who doesn't like to run the big KV2 picture
Yeah,
while playing the game?
you just, you know, you have that Soviet anthem in the background while playing it.
Yeah, the big red flag.
All right, we're moving on to the Germans. We have the first tank regiment here, which of course comes with those Messerschmitt planes, which are really good. And yeah, you have some of the heavy cats as well. Panzer Force, again, I'm not a huge fan of, but you can completely remove them. You can swap in like AA guns instead. Already in Echelon 2, you get 88s, which is really strong. So yeah, this is another super solid tank regiment. Probably one of the better ones, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, probably. Like, you just YOLO in double Panzer 3F to clear the script, then you put some infantry and you put the B2 on the field and you push with those.
I'm bigger than you, I'm higher in the food
Echelon 2 you
chain!
get a Tiger and that's pretty strong. You get AA as you told. You still get infantry, you can take them in half tracks if you want to. And later on you get like a Yak Panthers, King Tigers, what you really want.
Yeah. All right. Do you want
I
to
think
put
it's like a strong, really, really strong deck because you have access to everything.
Does it make itself into S tier, you think? Or does
Nope,
it get
not
next
that,
to the other
not
one?
that great. Probably
Alright.
similar power level to the Soviet one.
Alright. I would agree with that. Moving on to mechanized. This is another super fun one to play. You get like a bunch of Panzer IIs, or you could swap them out for Karos or something, which is also a bit memey, but it's a lot of fun to play. And then you have strong anti-air in Echelon 2, and then you also get heavies. So this is, you know, comparing them to the heavy tank regiments, these are just better in my mind. And because you still get like a lot of the heavy tanks, but you have so much more other tools, and a heavy tank makes more sense here. Because you're gonna keep it alive, right? You're not gonna want to throw it away. So there's no reason to bring 8 heavy tanks in your regiment. It makes more sense to just like bring a single one, and then like, you know, have a fleshed out regiment next to it. So yeah, I think again this is a really strong regiment.
Yeah, you have everything, and it's like one of the only tank regiments that can take saboteurs, because you can put Brandenburg infantry in Echelon 2 and 3.
Wait,
It's
really?
such a meme. Yep, you can.
Which
Meaning
slot?
that you can
Oh my
provide
God.
AA, you can do the saboteurs and still have tanks and infantry to push in.
Okay,
and on top of that,
nuts.
if you have, like, this deck relies on you buying the Luchs. Like, I've bought 16 Luchs to play this deck.
Is it so much better than the Panzer II?
Yep, it is, because the only thing that matters is the amount of crew. Because Panzer 1C, Panzer 2 is completely off the table. It's just too slow. Luchs is really fast, and the other tank you can consider is Panzer 1C. Panzer 1C is the actual good light tank from the 3. The Luchs is much better because it has 4 crewmen, meaning that 80 rifles are paying you, but you just don't care because two of your guys are gonna die, but still the tank's gonna keep rolling. And you just YOLO them, like you just ram stuff with them. And the funniest part is that they have the same mechanic as the Willis AT, meaning that if you cross the front line and there is nothing spotting you, can hide this tank on the enemy spawn.
Yeah.
And wait and just ram the RT later on. It's such a meme.
Alright.
And on top of that, you get like the German one's really good because in Echelon 3 you get Nations that can counter every armor in the game. And you have the Panzer Grenadier, like the best infantry in the game in Echelon 3 with the half track. And you can take saboteurs if you like to play them. You provide AA for the team. That's the deck that does everything pretty much.
Yeah.
You still can play some medium tanks if you want to. You still get the top tier Panthers.
Alright, this is...
You can get the Panzerwerfer if you want, but it comes into the Panzer Grenadier slot.
You have the flame half tracks as well if you want to.
the
ultimate meme. Yeah, and you even have the Peg 40 half tracks. You're never going to add that in here, but still.
Probably not.
No.
But to be fair, like...
what would you rather have, 2 half tracks or a Tiger?
To be fair, I would not run Tiger in this deck. Like, Tiger in Echelon 3 is just not worth it. You just run Nations, yeah. You know, because then you meet IS-3 and what you're gonna do to the IS-3. You're just gonna
You
suffer.
bomb strike it and then you run away and you go somewhere else.
You drop the smoke nades on top of him.
Yeah.
Oh, the funny fact is that Luchs has a smoke screen, meaning that you can meme people around.
Oh
using
yeah,
the smoke.
Panzer 2 doesn't get smokes, but Luchs does. True. All right. Yeah, I'm convinced about
this
the
deck is really, you have to grind a lot of points to make it work because you need like 12 Luchs. You need the Brandenburg infantry, so that's already like what, 3.5, like 3k at least of the resources you need to get to make this work really, to make this deck really work. But if you invest, I think it's an S plus deck. Just because it doesn't have a punch potential like the Soviet does, but it has a super unique control potential.
Yeah, and it's also like so diverse. Like you have everything. If you want a tiger, you can add a tiger too. So
it's hard to play though.
No, I agree. I mean, I thought motorized would be really good, but I've been recently running more mechanized regiments, and I do feel like they are better than some of the infantry regiments because you get it's just more diverse.
You still get ability to play with decent amount of infantry.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but the cost of making this, because without the
yeah, but I'd say that. But I mean, I've been running it completely without the Luchs because I didn't really see the point since you already have Panzer IIs, and I still think it's really strong.
Yep, but it's those touches of having a lot of Luchs spam, because it's like 13 points, and then having the Brandenburg infantry as a saboteur, meaning you play tank saboteur gameplay. I don't know how to call it otherwise.
Yeah,
it's like really strong.
Yeah, strong at everything. All right, then we have a very similar regiment actually, which is the Panzer Grenadier, except this one has a bit more heavies in it, I think. Yeah, you get the level 6 King Tigers and stuff.
Yep.
Do you still have the Luchs in this? I guess you do. Yeah, you do. You can bring a lot of Luchs here as well.
But you don't really play it because the mechanized regiment, the Luchs cost like 13.5 points,
True,
and here
yeah,
it costs 22.
True. And you don't.
But
do
you still have no
A
choice. You kind of have to play them. I don't think you do.
Yeah, you only get the Tiger instead. Yeah, that would make this a lot worse. Even though you got a Tiger in Echelon 2, I feel like AA is
overall,
so priceless.
Opening is, even though you have a plane, opening is pretty bad because you get double Panzer III Fs, and then you have to rely on like full-priced light tanks that are like full-priced light tanks are not good.
Yeah. Yeah, you want that cost reduction, otherwise they're just so inefficient, right?
Yeah, later on you can also, I think in this deck you can also play the Brandenburg infantry in this deck.
Yeah, in Echelon 3, can you get them already? Yeah, you can get them already in Echelon 2 as well.
Yep, and the fact that the infantry is cheaper, like the half-track infantry is cheaper, and the slots are in nice places, not blocking you.
It doesn't affect the Brandenburgers, though. Yeah,
it doesn't, but it does affect every single, like, you're not playing normal infantry in this deck, you just play half-tracks, and you do like a motorized plus heavy tanks kind of gameplay.
Yeah. Alright. So, considering those points, I would say this is quite a bit worse than the mechanized one, but it's definitely not bad. Would you agree with an A tier listing, or do you still think it makes it into S?
I think not having AA, but having the heavy tanks, and on top of that, even though it sounds cool, having a half track and a tiger.
Yeah, it still competes with mechanized, like it's.
Yeah, but you can't call them both, and that's the problem.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Echelon 2 you can't. You have to kind of make it the other way around, where you just call the tracks.
And then retreat a few men, or you just go only tracks. Yeah.
Yep. You can play discounted grenadiers though in Echelon 2, which is strong. Like the fact that you get a heavy tanks plus discounted infantry makes it already much better heavy tank battalion. That's how I look at it.
But I do think the heavy tank battalions are really bad in this game. So I'm gonna put this on A tier, and then moving on to the heavy tank regiment for the Germans. As we've been mentioning throughout most of these, they just aren't very good, and I don't think this is. You do get the Char B, but I don't think these are very good. You don't have any strong anti-air, and you just have a bunch of heavy tanks that you really don't want to like. What are you gonna do? Are you just gonna throw them away? Like you can't use multiple of them. You're gonna run out of stuff, and you're gonna run out of support. You do have an AA piece in Echelon 3, but I do feel like that's too late.
I mean, it's better to have it than to not. But the problem is, you're kind of, for example, you get something cool with a Russian one because you get one, you get IS-1.
Yeah.
But here you get the Tiger E, like a Tiger E, and the only difference between Tiger E and Tiger H is that Tiger E is just a tiny bit faster. Like it's not that great of a thing to have. Well, you can bring Tiger in first
again,
time.
Tiny difference. I think it has MG42s or something instead of MG34s. Yeah, but it's like it's so small difference that it's like it doesn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, would you say this goes next to the other heavy tank regiments?
I think it's on par with the other heavy tank regiments, like back down there.
Solid C tier listing. I'm surprised we only have one D tier. We may have to reshuffle a bit to even out and reconsider some things. Because I do feel like the assault regiments are probably better than the heavy tank regiments. So I would probably drop this down to D tier.
That's why I think it would be smarter to do a 3-tier list of like individual classes. Because as I told you at the start, it's hard to compare.
We're doing everything here. You know, we're doing everything. We're cramming everything into one sitting. All right, let's move on to the medium tank regiment. Now I'm gonna have an extremely hot take here. Please don't embarrass me and tell me I'm wrong. But if I am wrong, please do tell me I'm wrong. I think this is the worst medium tank regiment, and I think it's actually quite bad.
It's bad compared to other medium tank regiments, but overall,
that's a win.
Overall, I don't think it's that bad because you don't play the Panzer IV F2 here. You play the double Panzer III Js and the Panzer III Fs, and you do the similar thing as in the Soviet one.
Wait, you don't run the Panzer IV?
Yeah, because the Panzer III J has enough penetration to deal with most of the things, and it has the same armor. And the fact it has I think it has more HP,
it does actually. You're right.
Huh. It's actually kind of crazy how Panzer IV F2 it got nerfed so many times. It's just not worth running now.
Yeah, I feel like it's garbage. I feel like the entire Panzer IV line is garbage. Like the Panzer IV-H is like more expensive than a T-34-85, and it's like worse at everything. Same for the Panthers, dude. This Panther costs 68, and that's with a reduction, and it's just worse than T-34-85s. Like it gets penned by everything, and it has a shitty gun. The HE shells are crap. Like it doesn't really make up for it in anything. Like the speed is average. It has a massive, I mean, not even a massive crew. It's only 5 crew members. I don't know. I think these vehicles are just so poor compared to like the Soviet or the Americans. Like even the EC8s. Even the EC8s are amazing in comparison to these tanks, especially at their price points.
It's kind of different because the Panthers and those later Panzers, they get smokes. And it's pretty important so that they survive much more. You need to play with a smoke correctly. Then the thing, this medium tank regiment is kind of different because you play it more of a control way, not aggressive way. You want to counter enemy tanks in like a medium range. You don't. When you get close, you're gonna get overwhelmed. But when you're keeping your distance, like to the medium distance, you're outtrading every single other medium tank regiment. That's kind of how you do it.
Okay.
Later on, you still get the Nations and the like the Panthers G. They're pretty good, but again, the lack of the side armor means you have to play carefully. I think the Panther needs just a tiny bit of buff, but not to make it like super OP because now it's really weak for the cost and for the CP price. Like it's literally 15 command points, meaning you can just only run 2 Panthers and no infantry, while you can run double T-34-85 and still have infantry in front of you. That's kind of sad. I mean, you still get access to Nashrons, meaning you can deal with any armor. The Panther 5, like the Panther Gs are actually quite mobile, so they can play around. They can outrate another medium tanks at like medium ranges. That's kind of how it works. you can even now trade some weaker heavy tanks, especially in the Echelon 2. Like you can win versus IS-1 pretty easily with a Panther. That's a cool perk to have. You can counter every single other Sherman or
I'm
whatever.
curious though. You say it can beat up an IS-1, but the Panther. Let me see here. This is 68. Let me see how much an IS-1 is. Because I actually don't think it's like that far off. It's 84. Like that is
unless
very
the
small
Panther is gonna
difference.
show you the site, it's pretty hard to kill unless you're gonna get focused by the RT, and you are going to get focused by the RT, and due to the lack of the side armor, you're eating a lot of damage to the sides. Like overall, it's every medium tank regiment is strong because you get huge advantage in Echelon 1 and Echelon 2 over any other tank deck.
Yeah.
But the way that Panther plays, they kinda can't exploit that. Like with the Russian medium tank, you can exploit your advantage. And with those, you have to be really careful and play slow, meaning it's kinda...
I mean, it's also like the vehicles are so expensive, so you literally have nothing else. You can't even bring AA even if you wanted to, and the infantry options here are garbage and super expensive.
Yep.
So I feel like the regiment itself doesn't make up for its shortcomings compared to like the Soviet one. You know, we put it in S+, but that's because it actually has this playstyle that you can utilize. You can be real aggressive, but here, like, you say you can snipe tanks, but you can do that with most other regiments anyway, and it just doesn't
doesn't really fit the... You can't exploit the advantages you have early on.
Yeah. So I would say this is a potential C, but you would probably argue it's higher. Do you want to go with a B tier for this?
Yeah, probably B tier. That would be a good place to put it.
Yeah.
Because you still can play aggressive. It's a bit harder and more risky, but still doable.
But you know, I'm looking here at our B tier list, and you got stuff like the recon regiments, and I feel like this is even worse than that. So I'm not sure. But we'll keep it there for now. Let's move on to the Americans. There's only 4 regiments remaining now. So we're gonna do the American tank regiments. Starting, of course, with the 1st Tank Regiment. Yeah, so very similar to the other two, I would say. I would probably evaluate it very similar. The Sherman, or the Shermans, of course, you got all the EC8 variants and stuff. I don't think you can bring Pershing in this, can you? Oh, no, you can't, right?
Later on in Echelon 3, I believe.
I don't see it. I think this is actually a tank regiment without the Pershings.
Like the totally last slot, the bottom slot, you can.
Oh yes, you can. Okay, never mind. Yeah, you got this. Oh yeah, you got both of them. Okay, never mind. But yeah, I mean, I would say this is very similar. I guess you got the 51D airstrikes if you want to, which is the better versions. I mean, the Steward is fine. It's nothing amazing. It can struggle a bit versus like Panzer IIIs, but it does most of the jobs, I would say. I do think it's quite a bit worse than the Soviet one specifically, because you get the T-35s, and this is just worse. So I would evaluate it worse than that, but I mean, overall, I think the American vehicles are really good.
Okay, I'm gonna drop the stone on you. Like, look at Echelon 1. Apart from the airstrike, there's nothing good. Like,
yeah,
there's just, you're getting outclassed by everything, even the worst Russian or German.
Yeah,
ones.
you only have the
like,
Steward. Like, compared to the other ones, you get the T-35s.
You can't even you can't even compete. All you can do is try to play some kind of weird, I don't know, try to clear the script where there is no enemies, or the Steward just dies and there is nothing else. M2 is completely useless. Like, it also dies to like PTR spam or any other tank. Again, the other problem in Echelon 2, you don't have anything again. Like, you have no way of dealing with enemy armor, 0. Like the Sherman, the M4A3 is the best AT piece you have in the in this entire regiment in Echelon 2. So that means if you can't kill something with a Sherman gun, with a short Sherman gun, you're screwed. And that's like 99%. Unless you're gonna mirror yourself with an American first tank regiment, you're gonna suffer.
That's true.
And then you have a cool stuff, but the American heavy tanks, like the Super Pershing, it's okay. It's not that great, but it's super expensive in this deck, like 110 points.
I also noticed you only get Bofors for AA in Echelon 2, but the Soviet gets the 52k and the Germans get the 88.
M2 gun is a tier 5 gun, and these ones are tier 4.
Oh god, that makes this a lot worse. I actually thought there would be an M2 here.
There's not, and you kinda need that slot. You kinda need that slot for some Shermans because you need airstrikes on the right side.
True. Oh god, that's
and look at the fourth slot. There's like only chaff you can take. That's like okay. It's like super empty. And I think due to how because usually the tanks are kind of in this PC master race of whoever is gonna field the best tank the earliest, and due to the fact that late game, like the super late game USA units are not that great. I think we need to put it into the D tier because it's really bad. It's not a tank regiment.
Another D tier. Yeah, I'm honestly not gonna argue because I've not played this that much, but goddamn, I didn't realize it didn't have AA. I think that alone makes it so much worse than the other two first tank regiments. But yeah,
you just can't provide that.
I am curious about one thing. You mentioned that the American late game is bad. Like, do you really think that? Because I feel like you got for instance, you have the Jackson, that's like the best tank destroyer, and you have like the EC8s. I think those are they are much better than the German medium line. And like heavy tanks, you got like the Pershing and the Tortoise. Like, I think they're at least on par, if not better than like the Tigers and the Jag Tigers or the ISUs of the Soviets.
The main thing again is that all right, you get the tank destroyers, but you can get them much cheaper in different decks.
Yeah, I'm not talking about this regiment specifically, but I'm talking in general.
Like the only choice of the heavy tank is either the Turtle, and that's slow. It has no turret. It dies to artillery, and no one's even shooting you. And when they're shooting you with bigger caliber, they don't even have to pen you because they're doing this high impact damage, and they're just gonna keep slapping you, and they're gonna kill you eventually, and you're gonna lose 140 points units or whatever. You're just gonna get blocked. Like it's
expensive.
The Super Pershing is actually nice for killing medium tanks, but whenever it faces other heavies, it just dies. And it's also super expensive. And like, why would you play first tank if you want to spam the medium tanks? Like that.
Yeah.
That's not really the case. You have the Calliope you can take, but it's arguably one of the worst rocket pieces in the game because of the caliber of the rockets. You have to hit things directly.
Yeah.
And you can't. The main thing is after you start firing, you can't stop, and the full salvo has to go in. You can't divide shots, and that's a huge deal breaker.
Yeah, like the Cat, you can like do individual targets per rocket, and the Panzerwerfer is split into two, right? Yeah, true. Yeah, that's some very valid points. I mean, the Cali does make up for it in like the late game, the fact that you can actually use it as a tank as well. But
that's coping.
Yeah, but before then you don't want to, right? Because you're wasting your artillery piece if you lose it, so you don't want to risk losing it.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah,
it's just the case you don't really like the late game equipment does not make up for the fact that you have nothing in Echelon 1 and 2.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to mechanized. So yeah, I think this one is a lot worse than the other two mechanized regiments, I will say that. But it does have the Chaffee in Echelon 1, which is pretty huge. Because I like the Chaffee. I think the Chaffee is really good. Would you say it's not good? You mentioned it earlier, but I guess in Echelon 2 it may not be that good. But I would say like in Echelon 1, I think it's
Yeah,
insane.
early on, it's actually really good because it has the 75mm gun
Yeah.
that can punch through other heavies, like other tanks, and you can play two of them, meaning you can outplay everything. Then you still have the Steward spam, and okay, Steward is not that great when it costs like 25 points or 26, but when it costs
15, yeah, or 17
oh yeah,
even on the good one.
or like 15 or 17,
Yeah.
it's much better. And then again, you have the infantry costs that is not like super high. And going into Echelon 2, you get Hellcat play plus the cool combo you can do is a Hellcat plus M3 like M4A3 105, or you can do double Hellcat or double Sherman to clear out infantry. You have
Which slot is the Hellcat in? Is it in the Willis AT slot?
It's the second slot, yeah, the Willis AT.
Okay, and then you go
So
105 Sherman. Yeah, so
to...
it's the same as the was it motorized that could do something similar?
Yeah, pretty similar stuff. But here you get the infantry you can play around with. That's cheaper. You can take them in half tracks to be even more effective. You can take some Shermans that are discounted. They're also really good. And then late game you have pretty much the same stuff as the first tank regiment had. You don't get the super heavy, but you still get Calliopes, you still get sluggers, and you get the big AAPs to cover up the map.
Yeah. No AA in Echelon 2 though, you have to wait till Echelon 3.
Yep.
You can get the Bofors, but not the M2. I'm just curious, which regiment was it that could do the same 105 and Hellcat combo? It was an RT regiment, I think. Because I think that makes it a very nice comparison. Was it the anti-tank or regiment?
I think it was self-propelled one.
Oh yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, so you have the Hellcat and you have the 105. Yes. Yeah, so that makes it a very good comparison with the self-propelled one.
I think here you could even do the Slugger, the Jackson plus the 105, which is even stronger.
Oh, in Echelon 2 you can do the Jack. Can you fit that though? Is that enough?
Yeah, you can. Points? I think Jackson is 9 and then... Yeah, you can.
Yeah, 105 is 11, of course. And Jackson is 9, same as Hellcat?
I feel Hellcat is like 7.
Oh, true, yeah. Which slot would the Jackson be in? I don't think you can get the Jackson here with the 105, can you?
In mechanized, probably not. You can only get Hellcats plus the 105s.
Okay. But yeah, I think that makes it a very valid comparison between these two, because they have such similar Echelon 2 potentially. I mean, you don't have to run self-propel that way. You can go King Kongs instead. But overall, I do feel like the self-propelled one is better. Of course, mechanized though, you get that infantry, so you can be a bit more independent, which is of course very important if you're solo queuing.
You still can take rocket arty if you want to.
Yeah, and you have some really strong... Yeah, like you mentioned, you can still go Cali here if you want to. And you also have some of the really cool like USF vehicles, like the Thunderbolt, EC8s, and Pershing.
Yep, the fact that it has a lot of infantry is actually pretty huge.
Yeah, that territory presence is of course important. So looking at the regiments here, we put the SPG, the American SPG one on... Where the hell did we place it? We put it pretty high if I remember correctly. Yeah, we put it on A tier. Would you say this is better because of the infantry presence?
I think you're kind of valuing a bit different things, because with RT you can try to control the match. You have the tools, and here you kind of need to have something to push with, and you actually have. Is it better? I think Chaffee play is actually really strong early on, and then later on they're super cheap, so you can just spam them or spam stewards as you like. And I think the power level is a bit higher, and like the game impact you have with AA, with everything like that, it's pretty huge. I think like it's similar to Soviet one in my opinion.
All right, so S tier. I am inclined to agree, because as you mentioned, yeah, the Chaffees at the start is just better. Yeah, I mean the Scots are nice, but the Chef is better for sure.
Yeah, of course, it's not even close.
All right, and then we have the next heavy tank regiment, and these have not gotten that good ratings from us, and it's not gonna get, at least not from me. I think it suffers from the same issue, but even more so because some of the heavies, I mean they are very good, but you don't have like some of the super, at least fun stuff of the Soviets and the Germans. You don't have the same like extensive variation of options, right?
By the way,
You
you don't play it like a heavy tank regiment. You
you
play it
play more
like
like
a
medium EC8s and stuff.
buffed up. You played it like a buffed up medium tank regiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a double M3 Lee opening, and that's really strong. You can put some stewards to support it, or like LVTs as you like.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a really it's a really strong tank because M3 Lee counters all the other small tanks pretty effectively. Like it just double taps them with 76 and 75 and then the 37.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. In
But
Echelon 2, you actually don't play Pershing. You go double E2, you go double Jumbo.
Oh,
And that's kind of crazy because you're just pushing around and you're abusing the fact that they can't kill you. And you play it the same way as you would with a medium tank regiment, pretty much up to that point.
it's just, I mean, comparing to the medium regiment, which we haven't even gotten to yet, of course. Would you say this is like equally on par?
As American ones go, probably yeah, because you're still gonna use double and freely. Probably you might use a Sherman in medium tank regiment in Echelon 1, but it's not that great. And having the double jumbo in Echelon 2 means you can play aggressive, you can lose it, it doesn't really matter. You still have ability to take Shermans. You can take some AA if you want to.
I think he got interrupted. M3 Lee is 8 CP. Yeah, I mean, he just means that you can have two, I think. I don't think he means that you can get both at the same time. Like, you get an M3 Lee and then you get like a Stewart or LVT.
Yeah, sorry, I got interrupted. Yeah, true. You
fine.
play it like a medium tank regiment in Echelon 1 and 2, and then you get to heavy stuff, but if you want to, you can do the same thing as medium tank regiment again, just to play the M36 Slugger and top it off with the Jumbos with 76. Or you can actually take some super Pershings because they're pretty cheap in this deck.
Alright, I think it's very valid here that we actually just don't rate this until we take a look at the medium one, because I think like just starting off with that starting Sherman is so much better, and I feel like the medium one in general has just way better options. Like you mentioned the double jumbo in Echelon 2, but in the medium one you can bring double EC8 instead, and you can get like 105 Shermans, you have like so many extensive options. You can still get the jumbos here as well, and you have the same anti-air options, so that's not that exciting in either, no matter which one you pick. But I do feel like just in general the medium tank regiment has a lot better options. Like you would always rather have a Sherman than the Lee in Echelon 1, and in Echelon 2 you have the same but better options. So wouldn't the medium...
probably that's true.
Yeah. And again, you just have way more options in Echelon 3 as well with
yeah,
more diverse picks.
Then the actual heavy is not that great. I mean,
yeah.
the difference is you have slightly worse Echelon 1 and similar Echelon 2.
Yeah.
But the Echelon 3 is based on heavy tanks. And that's not good, and you don't have heavy AA, meaning you can't cover them, as the other decks could at least.
Yeah. So of course one thing you could look at then is the battle rank modifiers, but I mean it's heavy tank and the EC2 jumbo reductions. Meanwhile for the medium tank you just get a straight up medium tank modifier.
Yeah, across the board.
Yeah, which is on everything. It's on EC2, it's on jumbo, it's on Sherman, EC8s. Yeah, it's literally on everything. So yeah.
I'm gonna tell you, it's definitely better than the other heavy tanks in my opinion, because you can play it more aggressively and more like a medium tank. Meaning you gain a bit, but you're not as good as the medium tank regiment, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that the American heavy tank is on par with the German medium. Would you agree with that? That would put it on
probably.
B tier. Meanwhile, the 5th medium tank regiment for the Americans, I would put... Oof. Just looking where we put the other ones. I would actually put it in S tier. I actually think it's that good.
I think true. It's like similar to what Soviets do, but
Yeah.
you just lack a bit of firepower due to lower caliber guns.
Yeah, and I think the Soviet ones, the 85s, I feel like is just such a best in slot when it comes to mediums. Like they're just so good at everything.
Yeah,
And
you
they're
can
so
slap
cost efficient.
infantry super
Yeah.
nicely.
Yeah, they have massive HE shells. All right. Do you have any like final thoughts here? Anything you feel like, if we take a look at this, do you feel like there's anything that's wildly off or unbalanced? We have 5 regiments, ended up with 5 regiments in the S plus tier. The German SPG, the German 5th Engineer, the American 502nd, the Soviet 5th, and the German 12th. I'm actually surprised we only ended up with 1 Soviet regiment in S plus. That's a bit surprise to me, because I do feel like they do a lot of things extremely well.
You know, I would probably move all the all the recon battalions to tier up, and then move the assault battalions tier up. So they would recon battalions would end up in A, because when you micro them properly, I think they have a lot.
Yeah,
of
they have like massive potential. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the assault battalions are actually playable. That they're like actually
Yeah, I mean,
good
putting
if
them
they
in
like
C, like I don't think there's any unplayable regiments. Like even the one we put in D here, I still think they're quite good. It's just when you compare them like next to each other, I do feel like these regiments are worse. Like I do feel like going recon is just straight up worse than having another first tank regiment on your team, generally speaking. So I'm gonna keep it as is. I think I'm actually quite happy with this. But as you mentioned, like some of these regiments, the recon regiments, they have like massive potential, but they are extremely tough to play and make like actual use out of. So I think this is a bit of a more fair across the board rating. But yeah, this I've learned so much. Thank you, dude, for joining on this.
Bro, this game is like, I don't know how many hours do I have, but I still don't know. A lot. And I have like 3K hours.
Well, hopefully we get 3K more hours.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Lose our life kick. Oh well. Thank you, my guy. This was only, how long did we do this? Took like 2 hours.
It's like 2 hours.
Yeah, it took quite a bit longer than I expected, but it was fun. So yeah, thank you for joining me, my guy. This was, if you people just joined, this was, I'll go to rating. I won the internet. He is a top 10 player on the leaderboards, and he has played this for way too many hours, as we hear. And yeah, he's just a very knowledgeable and skilled player. So yeah, cheers, bro.
All right, it's finally over.
Yeah, you can go back to grinding the ladder now.